There we go.
Welcome inside the post-game huddle, wrapping up an Ohio State 37-17 victory over the Maryland Terrapins. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always pretty, but some second-half adjustments and much better second-half offensive play leads to the 37-17 victory. I'm Garrett Seawright, joined alongside Mark Givler and Devin Radcliffe. And, guys, when you take a look at the game as a whole, I think that kind of sums it up. It was a tale of two halves almost, Devin.
100% spot on there. First half, myself included, that was, you're thinking, is this a 2004 type season with the performance they had in the first half? Second half, I don't know what was said halftime. We'll probably never find out, but they figured something out. And hey, there's a Big Ten contender again. And, just told two totally different halves from Ohio State today.
Mark, when you take a look at, and we'll dive much deeper into this as we go along, but Kyle McCord, similarly, a tale of two halves almost, played really efficient, pretty well there in the second half.
Yeah, he was off in the first half. Look, everybody was off in the first half, but Kyle was off as well in the first half. The timing wasn't there. The trust didn't seem to be there. I don't know if, was it rust coming off the bye week? I don't know. That was an awful long period of rust to shake off. I think some halftime adjustments were made, especially offensively. Guys were running free in the secondary in the second half, and that was not happening in the first half. It's not like all of a sudden Kyle just saw guys were open that he wasn't seeing in the first half. They did some things in the locker room. I hope they asked Ryan Day about that here in the post game. And they schemed some guys open here in the second half. And, were the throws always perfect? No, but he got the ball where it needed to go for the most part in the second half. They had some nice drives. You'd like to see them finish a couple of those with 7. But, hey, a win is a win. But yeah, the 3 and out here for today, we got, bye week blues, game ball, defense answers. Garrett, I'll let you kind of quarterback this.
Yeah, when you take a look at it, you mentioned the bye week blues there, where it doesn't. You go 14 days without really playing a football game, and the first half didn't really instill a whole lot of confidence in, like, hey, they really worked on these specific things in that first half. But when you take a look at what went down through the bye week and kind of feeling out how that first half played out, I think they kind of kicked those bye week blues eventually.
Yeah, it took some time, more than I would like. You always know that maybe that first two drives on each side of the ball, so first 4 drives of the game, there may be a feeling out process in any game, but, coming off the bye, a little rust gets beat off of there. But that was a pretty severe case of bye week blues, if that's what it was. That was an ugly first half. Quite frankly, they were incredibly lucky to be tied at halftime. That was maybe the most discombobulated first quarter I've seen an Ohio State team play in a very long time. Everything was off. I didn't find a whole lot to like at all there in the first 25 minutes of that game. But yeah, they turned it around. The defense made some really big plays, got some key stops, which I've been complaining about even this year. Just, momentum type stops where, okay, the offense goes down and scores. You got some momentum. Now the defense needs to go out there and make a play. And they were able to do that more frequently today than they have in the past. So shaking off the rust. And like I said, you got a W over a team that probably should be ranked.
Mark, when you take a look at who's the recipient of today's game ball, who's getting that honor from you?
Josh Proctor, I thought, was tremendous. His best game as a Buckeye, his best play as a Buckeye, possibly a game saver on that pick 6. Who knows what that second half looks like if he doesn't make that play, that pick 6. In the run game, he had several key stops in and around the line of scrimmage on third downs. Had some nice plays in coverage in addition to the interception, of course. Lathan Ransom gets a co-mention here, though. Those 2 guys drove this game for Ohio State's defense. I didn't think they got a lot out of the front 4 for most of the first 2.5, 3 quarters. I didn't think the linebackers played a very good game, but that secondary has been really strong all season. I thought they carried things today.
Yeah, Devin, we talk about the answers from the defense where it wasn't you didn't get the production maybe out of the front four that you wanted. But when you look at that defensive effort from Ohio State today, they got stops when they needed to on third and pivotals time and time again.
Well, I think what you're seeing with Jim Knowles now is, I'll use the buzzwords you hear in coaching nerd talk. You're seeing more of the creepers pressures or the simulated pressures. I think the first interception, if I'm not mistaken, came with the linebackers on the line of scrimmage, looking like they're going to bring his classic 6-man pressure, and they bailed out to create that first interception for Josh Proctor there that went for pick 6. And I believe another one came on one of the sacks, maybe even Styles sacks, came on one of those looks where Styles came off one edge and the defensive end dropped off the other. May not in that sack in particular, but you're starting to see Jim Knowles develop some go-to calls that are a bit more creative, but still safe because they're only bringing 4, but they're bringing different guys from different angles instead of, hey, we're just going to bring everybody and, play cover 0 and hope for the best.
Devin, going back to your kind of 3 biggest takeaways of the game today, you mentioned pound the rock, where I'm certain that the idea that Travion Henderson wasn't going to play today didn't creep up at 9:00 this morning, that they had, there was the quote earlier this week where Ryan Day had talked about wanting to see a little bit more Mayan Williams on Saturday. I don't know if that was a little teaser of maybe Travion Henderson wasn't going to play, but Chip Trainum and Mayan Williams are similar backs, at least similar in stature, and both got opportunities to carry a little bigger load today.
And here's my thing, and I think my first 2 points really tie together here in terms of what is this offense going to be. And I think to me, a lot in the offensive line's taking a lot of criticism. At some point, and you kind of would have hoped as a fan that during the bye week, they would have sat down and really hammered out what this offensive line's good at and what they can hang their hat on. Doesn't appear to be that case after this week, where it's just a little bit of this. We're still going to run stretch, even though we may have the most athletic offensive line that we've had the past few years. We're kind of an inside zone team every once in a while, but when we're inside zone, we're going to be in the pistol, so it's coming. We're going to run gap, but just a little bit. We're going to toy with it, so we're not quite sure how to fit it up or what angles we need to take. So I think to really help the offensive line out in the run game as a result, what are they good at? Help them out. Something for them to hang their hat on and build off of that. So when they need to run the ball, they can run the ball. We saw in the first half, McCord was off. There's no getting around it. They couldn't hit those shots. McCord wasn't seeing it for whatever reason. Obviously that changed in the second half, but what do you go to when your quarterback's off? Well, in theory, you'd like to be able to, if you're Ohio State at least, or an Ohio State, caliber team Ohio State would like to be, hey, we got an offensive line. You know what? We're going to settle down. We're going to take the heat off our quarterback here, and we're going to run the ball. Well, they can't do that either right now, at least consistently. I think Henderson being out obviously didn't help because Henderson has that, next year explosive play capacity where, he gets a crease, he scores as we've seen early in this year, especially against the Notre Dame game. But again, find something for the offensive line to hang their hat on so that when McCord is having a slow start, you have something to go to take the pressure off of him.
So Devin, in that offensive identity, in that offensive line, and figuring out still kind of at this situation what the offensive line is, where are the noticeable strengths of we excel in X, Y, Z?
I don't want to say, I hate to say excel because I don't think they excel in anything quite yet that they can hang their hat on, but I think they're best at when they're running mid zone or tight zone. So basically downhill inside the tackle run games, especially when you got a back like Chip Trainum, who's 240 pounds and runs hard, runs forward. So let's build our offense off of that and build in, some run pass option stuff, some play action pass. Again, have the release built in, have the shots built in off of that run game, and take advantage of what your offensive line does do well or what they're best at right now.
Mark, piggybacking off of Devin's comments, is there almost a push-pull here, a tug-of-war of what Ryan Day wants the offense to be and what they're capable of, or maybe what their personnel is compared to previous years?
Yeah, it certainly seems to me like Ryan Day is still trying to find out what this offense needs to look like. I think Devin will probably agree, just listening to what he was just saying a minute ago. I think they need to take stretch to the boundary, put it in the laser cannon, and fire that thing to the freaking moon, never to be seen again. They're running way too much. It's like a security blanket for some reason, but security blankets are supposed to be secure. They're supposed to make you feel good. Like these runs don't work. Like it's just not there. It's predictable. And it's got to go. So I don't think the offensive line is making this. We talk about making it easier on the offensive line, but I don't know that the offensive line is making it easy on day, because at some point you have to show your play callers and your quarterback what you can do. And I'm just struggling to find what they're good at consistently. They're not consistent in pass protection right now. I thought there were points today where they got a little bit better push on some of their inside runs. But this is very much a work in progress. And I think it is a little discouraging that they didn't clean some of this up over the bye week. And so now you're in the meat of the schedule. We're not far off from a stretch of like playing Penn State and at Wisconsin, right, where you're going to need the offensive line to not hold you back.
Let me throw this thought in here that just hit me as you're with your comments there. Comparison of stretch to, let's go back to plays that set us crazy over the years as Ohio State fans. Urban Meyer's inside zone. He's always running up the middle. Or let's even go back to Coach Tressel. Why does he always run Dave? Well, here's the fundamental difference between those three schemes of run games. And we can bring up, Coach Lou Holtz into this a little bit if you want to. Tie that in here if we haven't run that course yet. Stretch, the offensive line is basically trying to horizontally displace or run sideways, to oversimplify it. On Coach Tressel's power, we're moving people. We're knocking people out the hole. On Urban Meyer's inside zone, we're running up the field. We're going forward. Again, I'm oversimplifying this, but the fundamental level on Coach Tressel's power, Urban Meyer's inside zone, we're going forward and we're moving people. So it may not work in the first quarter, but we are going to pound on you so that, guess what, halfway through the third quarter, and we saw this a lot over the past 20 years, those 2.5-yard gains that would set us crazy in the first half are 7-yard gains, if not creasing, as the game progressed, because the offensive line was teeing off and pounding on you for 4 quarters. When you're hanging your hat on a play that's designed to run sideways, you lose that physicality that you get from more vertical downhill run games. And, Coach Tressel's power, Urban Meyer's inside tight zone.
Ohio State wins 37-17 over Maryland today. It's the Postgame Huddle. I'm Garrett C. Ryan, joined alongside Devin Radcliffe and Mark Givler. When you take a look at the statistical comparison, the total yards isn't all that different, but when you look at the penalties, 10 penalties for Ohio State today is a somewhat significant number there, Mark.
Yeah, it was not a clean game. I mean, they had a really good 10-minute stretch there in the second half, but this was largely a game that I thought Maryland played a better game. I thought Maryland gifted them a few things. It's actually kind of staggering the total yards if you look at that now, because they were way behind Maryland in total yards well into the second quarter. So the idea that they ended up actually having almost 100 more total yards than Maryland just kind of shows you how things kind of flipped there very quickly in the second half for about a 10-15 minute window there. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of those things, and my observations are going to be up here on the site pretty soon, but it's going to be one of those games where, there's probably some people who aren't very happy with me on my observations, because I'm going to be asked, are you sure they won the game? Because usually after a win, if I do 10 observations, at least, 6 or 7 of them are going to be relatively positive. Today, it's 7 or 8 of these are going to be negative. I mean, there was not a lot of great to take from this outside of a couple of things. And we kind of already discussed it. The safety play was fantastic. Proctor and Ransom, they did click. They found some things offensively. They figured some things out in the pass game offensively later on in the second half. But this was not a game where you're probably going to like what you see on the film when you're Ryan Day and you go back through things tomorrow. I think you're going to be really angry after after going through the replay.
Mark, kind of piggybacking off that, is there a positive there, though, that even when you're not playing up to the level that you'd like to, and you're not encouraged by what you see, winning a conference game by 20 points is still you know what, there is a light at the end of the tunnel of where this team can get to?
Yeah, I mean, look, you won. You beat a team who should be ranked. And look, they were 26th coming into today. They were the first team out of the top 25. If you've watched LSU and Maryland this year and you think LSU should be, ahead of Maryland in the top 25, I don't know what to tell you. If you've watched Tennessee and feel that way, I don't know what to tell you. So you beat a borderline ranked team to stay undefeated. So it's going to be easier, I think, to, again, go in on Monday and have some pretty serious and tough conversations with people than it is had you, been shocked today and found a way to lose this game. So it is easier to correct these types of things as you go along, as long as you're winning. But you hope this doesn't turn into, some people are saying, well, this is 2002. Maybe it's 2002. Maybe it's 2015 where you sleptwalked the whole way through the year, and then you didn't click until after someone actually had to beat you for you to figure out, oh yeah, we can't keep doing this every week.
If we go back to the stats here as we await Ryan Day to approach the podium there at Ohio State, when you look at the 382 total yards and 320 of them come through the air, Devin, we talked about running the football, but I don't know if during the game that the disparity seemed quite that wide that the total yardage was coming from Kyle McCord and frankly, Marvin Harrison Jr. that much.
Well, I think you go, I think you take a step back and look at it from a macro level. It's kind of two conversations here, and Jim Knowles' defense and this new philosophy he's embraced and implemented this year of bend but don't break. Well, what were Tua's completions? They were all underneath. I don't recall a Maryland big play completion off the top of my head. I could be corrected on that. So excuse me if I'm incorrect there, but I don't remember that big shot completion from Maryland, where you contrast that with Ohio State, who, especially in the second half, got hot and hit the shots. Kyle McCord, once again, it seems like, Notre Dame game, he had the NFL throw to Emeka on the 3rd and 19 while he put that over the shoulder on Harrison Jr. on the sideline, and shows another NFL throw again today. So Ohio State may have only hit, so many pass plays completion-wise, but they were all for huge chunks of yards. Contrast that with Maryland, they got 196, but every one of them was an earned 7 yards, catch and tackle.
Yeah, when you take a look at it, Talia Tungavailoa was 21 of 41 for 196. Meanwhile, Kyle McCord, 19 of 29 for 320. So 2 fewer completions, and what is that, another 125 more yards? And it goes to that big play ability where Maryland in the big plays and through the air is considered 15 or more yards. They had 5 of them. Ohio State had 8 of them, but their 8 are for 44, 37, 37, 58, while 2 of Maryland's are right at 15 yards. So there is a noticeable difference there in the big play portion, where really, Mark, I think Ohio State, for the most part, through the early portion of the season, hadn't really been a get-rich-quick offense where you see a little bit more of that explosion today. Is that a scheme thing? Is that a Maryland maybe being a little suspect on defense thing? What do you attribute that just sheer amount of big plays today for Ohio State through the air?
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably, to really diagnose it perfectly, you'd probably need to go back and kind of see the all 22 or whatever, just because the TV angle is not necessarily showing us what Maryland's doing in the back 7 the entire game. But it was clear to me that, and again, I hope this is asked of Day in the post game, it was clear to me Ohio State made some adjustments in the passing game, because you're getting these TV angles from behind McCord on these as they're struggling, and you're seeing, 3 guys are covered. There's nowhere to go. He's making a bad throw or a bad choice somewhere. Second half, you're taking more shots. Maybe that was just part of it. Just take the shots, just dial it up and go. But there were more guys running free downfield than there were in the first half. So something changed there. And all of a sudden, it was like 3 or 4 explosives in maybe 10 or 12 minutes of game time. A couple to Harrison, you had Fleming on one, and you had Stover on the touchdown. So guys were running free. They figured something out at halftime. And again, I hope maybe Day, I don't know that Day's going to tell us everything about that, but maybe Day can shed some light on that if not in this post game, maybe I'll get over there and ask him this week what maybe changed there at halftime.
No, you could see that noticeable difference there of the downfield passing was certainly much more different, Devin, especially the Cade Stover touchdown when they showed the replay where he was open from the snap and kudos to Kyle McCord for one, seeing it, recognizing it, but then also putting that ball a little differently than he threw, the pass to Fleming that probably should have been a touchdown that he left short. There was a pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. that was a little short that probably should have been a touchdown. So there are certainly, things to work on, but when the passing game is where the level it was in the second half, it really makes a difference as it looks like Ryan Day is getting ready to hit the podium in Columbus.
Davis, and we'll go to Austin Ward.
Ryan Kyle seemed to really settle down in the second half there. I guess how would you assess his play and, how he came out? And just as a team, too, you kind of seem a little bit flat. I mean, was that something that you kind of saw it might be the case in practice this week? Or
No. Couldn't quite understand what was going on there in the first couple drives. Didn't quite get in sync on offense. And then, we had the botched snap. That was not supposed to be a fail. It was just a bad snap. He just kind of it slipped out of his hands. And, it was like one of those things, okay, what's going on here? But, that is the game and you got to respond. So I thought we did respond well in the second half, like you said, got in a rhythm. The number one goal is to be 1-0 on Saturday. So check that box. We want to play well in the second half. Check that box. We wanted to start fast in this game. Didn't get that done. So we got to look at why that is, but yeah, you can start to see the rhythm again in the second half. Similar to kind of, how we got in that 2-minute drive 2 weeks ago, so got to look at that and figure out why that is. But some real good play by Marvin Harrison, and we needed that, because they were putting a lot of guys in the box and left the middle of the field open at times. And we took advantage of that in the second half.
Over to the left, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch, and then Nathan Baird.
You were coming off an off week and an emotional win. And I know you respected Maryland. What do you attribute the early struggles to?
I don't know. I don't. I wish I had an answer to it. But you just got to keep. Shooters keep shooting. You just keep shooting and push through it. But no, I don't really have a good answer for it other than we got ourselves off schedule and then found ourselves in some third and bad situations, which is why the third down looks the way it does. One thing about the third downs and, a couple weeks ago, we did a nice job of is we stayed in pretty manageable situations. This was not the case today. So, didn't quite get that done. But, overall, I was pleased with the second half, but not the first.
Played any explanation for that?
Yeah. So, we expect him to be ready for next week. It was one of those things where the question was if he played in the game, could he have a setback if something happened in the game? The answer was yes. And just based on how everything played out last year, the decision was made to hold him this week to make sure that he was full go next week because we know we got a lot of football ahead of us. And so we have a ton of confidence in Chip and in Mayan to go ahead in the game and go play. And they did. But excited to get Trey back for next week. He could have played in the game, but the decision was made.
Over to the right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast, and then Stephen Means.
Ryan, a month ago, you walked into the postgame at Indiana and said sometimes you have to be okay winning with the defense, especially in the first half tonight. I mean, you get the touchdown from Josh. You keep the game close that way. Are you becoming more comfortable with that formula, even if it's not your preference?
Yeah, no, I have no preference as long as we win. But no, I think the defense, did some great things in this game. I thought Jim and the staff did a really good job with the game plan. I thought, they were a step ahead just in terms of the defenses that we were in. He did a great job of getting them into the right calls. There's still a ton of things that we can improve on and get better at. There is, but the pick six by Proctor was huge. I thought Davis did a great job there of not blindside blocking that guy. I mean, that's really heads up football. We got too many penalties on here. We got to get that all cleaned up. But I think our guys are playing hard, and I think that's the thing to me. Like, there's certain things that we can clean up, some things that were close, but our team is playing with passion. They're playing physical. They're playing hard. I mean, to see Josh make that play and then run down on the kickoff, stick the guy inside. I think it was inside the 20-yard line. There's just a lot of that play going on, and it's an exciting team to be around. I think the most exciting part of it is we haven't even reached where we can be, so we got to keep building and growing. But one of the things that you're starting to see about this team is we don't panic. if it's not going quite right, we're going to keep pushing forward. And maybe in the past it was like, okay, if things weren't going well in the first half, if it wasn't like the scoreboard wasn't turning over every couple of drives, everybody would start getting panicky. I think these guys have some poise. They played some games, and counting on that experience to pay off here in October and November.
Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com, and then Cameron Teague Robinson.
Ryan, as you assess things during the off week and you looked at offensive line personnel, was there any revisiting of the 5 guys you're playing there right now? And what is your concern level? I know you're saying not panicking like within a game, but like what's your concern level of that situation being the thing that kind of holds this team back?
Yeah, I gotta watch it one more time and just see where we're at with what's going on. I know that there's a lot of guys in the box. They're going to stop the run, and that opened up the pass game in the second half. But I don't know exactly what our numbers were. I know I think it was less than 100 yards. I know the big sack probably took away some of it, but I think we were just over 85 yards or so rushing. And we expect to be higher than that. So I gotta figure out what it is. Is it the personnel, the scheme, or the coaching of it? I felt like we had a good plan going in. They got a pretty good front. They do a nice job, but we want to be more explosive. But like for instance, you're coming out on the 10-yard line, and there's a lot of guys in the box, and it opened up a huge play for Marvin down the middle of the field. So those are the things that we have to do. Is if they're going to put that many guys in a box, then we got to be able to throw the football, with what we have. But at the same time, when the box looks right, we got to be efficient. And I'll look at that, and when we have our press conference on Tuesday, I'll probably have a better answer for you.
Okay, I'm going to ask people back there at the tables to clear your computers off. We're going to keep asking Coach some questions. We're going to have 2 more for Coach up here, and then I'm going to bring some players in at those tables. So if you're at the table, I need you to clear off there. A couple more for Coach right now. First of all, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com over to the right, and then Clay Hall.
Just for starting, how was Emeka right after this game? And then also, just you're talking about Kyle a little bit. What did you just think of his day today?
I think he would tell you, he felt better about the second half than he did the first. Made some nice throws. Wishes he had some back, but yeah, I thought played well there. I don't know what exactly the numbers were in the second half, but that's what our expectations are. And I know he wants to be great, and we'll look at it and try to get better. But and then with Mecca, they're evaluating him now. Doesn't seem like something major, but I don't really have much of an answer for you right now.
Over to the left, Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic, and then Dan Hope.
Ryan, it's a tough challenge to contain a quarterback like Maryland has with the pass rush. Just kind of your thoughts on what those guys up front did, kind of chasing him, keeping him running around.
There was some good plays and some ones that he snuck free on for sure. Yeah, and you can see sometimes we're bringing 5 or 6, and then there's sometimes we're bringing 4, sometimes we're bringing 3, and then so what you do is you try to change up the look in the back end for him. Are there 8 guys in coverage, 7 or 6? Sometimes 0. There was a couple that we brought 0 pressure on. And so when that happens, you have to have a good plan for it. I thought there were some good snaps, but I think there's going to be some things that we know we could have probably handled much better. But again, overall, the goal was to, pretty much contain him. He had 196 yards, 21 of 41, 2 sacks, and obviously the pick 6. So if you had said that going into the game, I probably would have signed on the dotted line on that one. So job well done. And listen, Mike does a good job. And he's a good coach, and Talia is a very talented player. You can just see he's a really good college football player.
All right, we're going to pause for just a moment, Coach. If you could just stay there. We're going to bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., Cade Stover, and Josh Proctor. We're going to send them to the back. Guys, if you could let them get to the tables in the back. Okay, Katie there. Yep. Any table you want back there, Marvin. And then, Marvin Harrison Jr., Josh Proctor.
Marv's got his luggage with him. It looks like he's going through TSA over there.
And Cade Stover. And then we're going to continue questions up front here.
Cade, where's your Louis bag? You don't have one? No, you don't have one?
Hey, Cade, you can go all the way to your left there. Okay, over here, back with Coach Day, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Yeah, so Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting down with the media here after a big day. We're going to hear from Marv right now.
I'm going to feel a lot tomorrow, so I'm going to give it Stu, the rest of the trainers who did a great job this week preparing me for the game, and I'll shout out to a lot of credit to them.
What was it in the second half that allowed you guys to start clicking offensively?
I think we just got to make plays, really. It came down to executing. Obviously, I had some one-on-one matchups there in the second half. It wasn't really getting us in the first half. They played a lot of zone. The second half, they kind of took their risk playing one-on-one with me and the rest of the receivers, and we made them pay for it.
Did you believe you were as open as you were on that first one, that 58-yarder that caught you on?
Yeah, it's definitely open.
Dave was talking about how there doesn't seem to be panic for you guys. Like, clearly, the first half wasn't what you wanted, but
yeah,
it wasn't pressing the issue or panicking Kyle. I mean, would you describe that presence of mind for you guys compared to a year ago?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame was it gave us a lot of confidence that, if we need to go score, we can go score. And obviously, we want to score every drive, but we really need a touchdown. I think we provided that, especially that first drive came out of the second half. Maryland went down, they had a score, and we kind of had an answer there. So I think just overall, we're just building that confidence in the whole offense.
Did you feel any frustration in the first half, or is that just part of it?
I mean, that's just part of it. You're not going to succeed as much as you want to all the time. It's just more as how you bounce back from it. I think we did a good job that second half.
Marvin, what do you think it says about this team to bounce back like that, to not panic and to push forward and have a second half like that?
I think it shows the growth and maturity of this team. Like I said, Notre Dame was a big step for us. They gave us a lot of confidence that, we can battle back against anybody, and we need to make plays, we can make the plays.
I'm talking about that grit and perseverance. How were you guys able to instill that, other than the Notre Dame game?
Mm-hmm.
How were you guys continue to keep on having that perseverance and grit each and every game?
Coach Mick all off season. He trains us, really hard. Winter, spring, and summer. I think it highlights that come game time. So I think a lot of credit goes to Coach Mick and the strength and conditioning staff.
Does that kind of come from that ability to not panic when things aren't going the way you want? It seems like a lot of these guys, you talked about with Kyle, but even some guys on defense are pretty poised.
Yes, definitely. I'm not one to say much, so I kind of let everybody else, be the rah-rah guys and motivate the team. They kind of just see me. If they see me, they see I'm relaxed. I'm still out there having fun, so that's kind of my role in that. But I think definitely the leaders that we have on the team, like Tommy and Xavier Johnson, Kyle stepped into their role too, to help the team go a long way in that.
Kyle McCord at the
Good enough. Good enough.
Yeah, I thought Coach Day did a good job today, giving the opportunity to kind of get in that rhythm. Obviously, early on, I feel like, missed some opportunities or, saw just a second late. So that's, nobody else but myself. And that's just the area I have to continue to grow on and, continue to find ways to start fast. Because, if we could replicate what we did in the second half, but just do that in the first half, I think that's a completely different game. And a lot of that starts with me. So
different, though, than you expected, or was it just?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say it was anything that they were doing. I think a lot of that, the looks that we got out there were what we were expecting. Obviously you still have to go out and play football and go through your reads and whatnot. But at the same time, I think I just got to be better, start fast. Because if we can get up, and put a few touchdowns on the board early, that momentum is going to carry us through the entire game.
Over here to the left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com, and then Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Kyle, you guys have thrived for so many years on offensive balance, the run and the pass game working together. Until the running game gets going more, do you think this offense can be everything it needs and wants to be this season?
I think that's part of playing football. If they're going to try to take away the run, I think we have to do a good job passing the ball, and vice versa. If they want to play us, with high safeties and, bail those linebackers out of there the moment they think it's a pass, then we got to be able to run the ball. There's been points this year where we weren't throwing the ball great and the running game picked us up. And then there's points where we weren't running the ball great. And I think we picked it up while throwing. But I think obviously there's room for improvement there. Just need to continue to grow. I think this offense is no doubt at its best. And we have both of those departments going.
Okay. I'm going to give the Marvin Harrison group a last, call right now for questions because we're going to get Sonny Styles in there. Over here to the right, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on SI.
A two-part question. First of all, how much do you feel the wind affected your deep ball throw to Marvin and to Julian, if at all? And the second part is about tempo. It feels like in the second half when you were running tempo, things were rhythmic and smooth and quick and reactive. Are you more comfortable in tempo?
Yeah. To answer your first question, I think the biggest thing with the deep ball is just seeing it early. And then getting a good pre-snap look and giving myself an idea of what I'm going to do with the ball pre-snap. That way I can get those balls out, just a hair quicker and hit them on the run. And then as far as tempo goes, I think it depends on the week. Obviously, there are some weeks where you want to control the ball and control the clock. But this wasn't really one of those weeks. So we knew on offense, they're going to throw the ball too. They're going to go tempo too. So it wasn't one of those things where, we had to try to get the perfect look on every single play. So I think all the guys with the plays we call when we do go tempo are comfortable with them. And we're able to get raw in there a little bit. And, sometimes that's what you need in, slow start type of games, ugly games like this. Get some tempo going. Even if you're not hitting big plays, just that rhythm, I feel like, kind of gets us, moving down the field a little bit on offense.
Okay, we're going to pause it. Hey, if we could keep it down in the back a little bit. Sonny Styles, if you don't mind taking the empty table in the back. We've got Sonny. Okay, we're going to start to wrap it up for Cade Stover in the back. So I've got JT Tuimoloau. That's going to go up there, continuing with Kyle McCord right here. Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Kyle, when offenses are clicking, it feels like, well, they're calling better plays, figuring out what the defense is doing more. Was that anything to the second half in that, or did you just execute better and take advantage?
We just executed better. I feel like there were definitely opportunities for us in the first half to go score. There wasn't anything that, we didn't expect for the most part. And it wasn't anything that, I think the coaches could have done better. I feel like, as offense and as a quarterback of the offense, I feel like we need to take the initiative and regardless of what they call, make it work. And, we didn't quite do that in the first half. And then the second half, I felt like we did do that. We executed when the opportunity presented itself, and that's huge, especially when you get down to the red zone, scoring touchdowns instead of field goals, because that's, 4-point swing right there. So I wouldn't say it was the play calling. I would say it's just execution that we need to continue to improve upon.
Hey, that were huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Katie, go ahead. Yeah. Actually, we've got JT Tuimoloau over to the right.
He's up and down, he's gone through a lot of injuries and stuff like that. And I think he's playing his best ball. He's the best version of himself. He's a leader on our defense, and he's doing really good. And it makes me happy.
Who had the hardest hit in the secondary today? There's a few of them.
My favorite one was Denzel's, because that kind of surprised me. I've never seen Denzel hit anyone like that. That was my favorite one.
Safeties kind of set the tone for the defense.
Yeah.
2 picks. You guys made some big hits. Just what do you think people are learning about your safety room that you already knew?
I think we just got something to prove. I think last year we weren't where we wanted to be, and we got to play every game like we got something to prove, because we do.
You're trying to get a pick next.
Yeah, hopefully.
You had a couple in coverage today. You were there, and they just made some plays. How do you, not let that kind of affect you?
Just talking. I think that's where your teammates help you a lot. Help you, come up to you next play. Obviously, I want to make those plays, but I got to move on to the next play so that I don't miss out on the play that's coming next. We as a DB unit, we talk about the next play is most important play, and I think that's a big thing as a DB, because you're going to give up a ball, and you can't let that carry on to a few more plays down the line.
As far as containing Talia, obviously a talented guy, likes to get out of the pocket. How do you think you guys did overall keeping him in space and maintaining gaps and all that?
I think we did all right. We had a few plays where he was scrambling out late in the drive. I think the DBs did a good job of staying on their man, the scramble drill. But, I feel like we did solid.
What can you take away from playing the quarterback like that? Because you're going to face other guys that are versatile, like can do things with their feet.
Like you said, keeping them in the pocket, and then like I was just talking about the scramble drill. I feel like that's huge. When quarterbacks like that can extend plays, they make big plays happen. When DBs lose their man, somebody's wide open downfield. So I think it's huge, the scramble drill, to get your man and plaster on them.
Was it a coincidence in the second half when the game started to change and you guys were delivering some big hits? So those two things kind of work together in a way?
I think that definitely sets the tone, When guys are catching the ball and getting hit, I think it makes them a little more concerned when they're running routes, the ball's getting thrown to them, they're looking for somebody to come hit them. So I think it definitely sets the tone, And I think it gets everyone else going, You see somebody hit somebody really hard, you want to go hit somebody really hard, and everyone's just flying around.
Sorry if you already asked this, but Maryland seemed to be really taking some of those one-on-one shots against the safeties, and when Josh made that pick and took it back, just how much of a sort of tone change was that for this game?
That was a really good play by him. I think it definitely kind of flipped it. I think he felt the energy flip on the defensive side of the ball, but I think it was a big play for us. I think it really got us going.
Is it? Like, are you guys feeling like you have to come into games compared to last year? Sort of up a level. Like this offense needs your help right now as a defense.
I mean, our offense is really talented. I think we, as a defense, we take pride in it. Like, we want to win the game. Regardless of what the offense is doing, we take that. We come with that chip on our shoulder. Like, we want to win the game.
Sonny, just how different has Josh Proctor been this year, in your opinion, in terms of just how confident he is?
Yeah, I feel like you definitely see that confidence. I think a big thing for him is just, I think the offseason, he had a really good offseason, and just making plays, flying around. The more plays he makes, you just see him fly around even more. You see the confidence. You can feel it from him. And I think he's really stepping into a leadership role for our defense.
How much confidence does it give you guys when he's consistently making a play back there and you know you can rely on him?
I mean, when they run that ball, he's flying downhill and going to smack somebody. So, I mean, it makes me feel pretty good. I know he's right there beside me. Obviously, everyone see how Lathan's hit too. So, I think we're playing some good ball right now. We got to keep getting better, keep working.
You think Talia's scrambling ability was a good test today for you guys?
I mean, definitely was. I mean, he's one of the best at that, I say, when it comes to extending plays. So I think it's good to get that under our belt and hit the drawing board, see what we need to improve on, and see how we can handle that better.
Did you feel frustrated at times trying to scramble after him? You did a pretty good job tracking.
Oh yeah, the one time I was blitzing, I had to break down, make sure he didn't shake me. Yeah, he's a shifty guy.
But it seems like he's probably going to provide good practice, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's definitely good to get that on tape and let us see that and see what we need to improve on.
You said Josh Proctor had a really good offseason. What did that look like? What do you mean by that?
I think you could see it's like a different focus from him, like a laser focus, like he was on a mission. I think you saw that from him, and not like he wasn't focused before. It was just a different level of intensity. You could see it in his eyes every day. I think that's what really why you're seeing him play his best ball right now.
There was a lot of competition in that room for just the 2 or 3 starting spots. Do you think that contributed to it? I mean, you were part of that too.
Yeah, I think competition makes you play a little harder. You gotta stay on your toes. I think that definitely helped.
Sonny, thank you. Thanks, Sonny.
Yeah, I think obviously
offense just starting faster, I think, has to be a point of emphasis this week, and not trying to kind of feel your way into the game, just come out swinging. I think that has to be a point of emphasis for us this week. But at the same time, as crazy as it may sound, I think things like that are almost good for us in the long run. We know if we're in a tie game at halftime, not to panic and just to continue to stick to our fundamentals, stick to our rules, and eventually, something's going to pop. And, that's what happened. I mean, even in the second half, when they went down and scored, nobody panicked. Nobody was freaking out. We knew exactly what we needed to do, and that was get the ball down and score. And once we got that little bit of momentum, just keep it rolling in the second half. But I think the biggest thing, just, talking for myself and the offense, is just starting fast.
Great. Kyle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. And folks, that's it for post-game press conferences.
Yep. Looks like that'll wrap things up from Columbus. There is Mark Givler and Garrett Seawright with you here on the post-game huddle, wrapping up a Ohio State 37-17 victory over Maryland. And Mark, I want to go over some of the things that were said. First from Ryan Day, where he mentioned that it wasn't supposed to be a fake punt. I thought originally that Cody Simon caught that ball. The ball almost caught him, where he gave a momentarily, why in the hell do I have the football right now? Like, it was very quickly oh gosh. And when you're not planning to fake a punt, that's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, it did. And they kind of mentioned it on the broadcast, and I was watching, and at first I was like, oh, that actually kind of made sense to run a fake punt. Like, that was a spot where it might make some sense to do that. The right yardage, kind of the right time of game. But, I just, it didn't look right though. And they were kind of talking about it on the broadcast. I'm like, I'm going to wait and see what Ryan Day says about that in the post game. Cause I didn't want to go nuts on it, right after the game. Right. And then Ryan Day comes out and says, oh no, it was a fake punt or whatever. So, that was bizarre. That's almost fortunate though. I mean, what are the odds that the ball would slip out of his hands in such a way that it would go right to Cody? I mean, that could have went anywhere. That could have rolled a ground ball back there, and Maryland could have, picked it up and ran in for a touchdown. I mean, that could have, anything could have happened there. So, That's a bizarre play.
Yeah, today's post-game huddle brought to you by WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a better by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. You can see your current action, your betting history, and your stats, and you can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. You can follow them on Twitter. They're the best hang on all of gambling Twitter at WagerWire on X, and you can head to the App Store or Play Store now, and you can search for WagerWire, and you can download the app. And that is the big sponsor today of our post-game huddle. Also, Mark, when Ryan Day says that this isn't a team that panics, one, I think that's really important, because I think that's true, and I think they've bared that out so far, especially the final drive against Notre Dame. But I think there was more consternation and more angst from the fan base today when it did not go well in the first quarter than there was on the sidelines, and it's an important, I think, quality to have in a college football program.
It is a bit of a fine line, though, isn't it? Between being calm and cool and being too late, lacking some urgency. It's a fine line, but I do agree. And we kind of had a little laugh about that before we went to the press conferences about, is this 2002 Ohio State or is this 2015 Ohio State?
Right.
And I do think we have more similarities to 2002 in terms of new guys being broken in. You're trying to find yourself at quarterback. You're trying to find yourself on the offensive line. You've got some guys on defense who are trying to have breakout years. This isn't like a team that, brought its entire group back like 15. And so I do agree with you. I tend to think it is more of a focused but not rattled demeanor of how some of these guys are wired. But yeah, it's so far so good. They've made plays in the second half under pressure when they've needed to. But, I think as Day obviously said, but certainly Kyle McCord really kind of laid into, you got to start faster. You can't start this slow offensively. Every game, it will bite you eventually.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a Ryan Day thing that they've just never really traditionally started all that quickly under him. And I think Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt talked about it there late in the fourth quarter. Was they made some great second half adjustments, and and I know it's kind of cliche to say at some point that's going to come back to bite you, where it necessarily really hasn't bitten Ohio State under Ryan Day yet, where you just got down too much in the first half and weren't able to climb back from it. But at some point that situation is going to arise where you're not just going to be able to go into halftime, fix everything that you want, and still come out with the W. So is there a balancing act? Is there a for sure way to say, all right, here is how we're going to start things off quickly and get up and meander and do the second half adjustments from there?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the thing they've got to figure out. Obviously, what I would do, I would come out and take some shots downfield early. I feel like they've waited and kind of settled into the game, and in some instances, they'll give Kyle a couple of quick throws, or they'll try and establish the run. I would like to see them push the ball down the field a little bit earlier in the game now, especially now that McCord has kind of proven, as we saw in the second half today, like we saw late in the Notre Dame game, he can drive those throws. Let's get a little aggressive there at the beginning and maybe not be so concerned about, we got to get into 2nd and 6. We can't be in 2nd and 10, or we can't be in 3rd and 8. We've got to be ahead of schedule every single series. Just take a couple shots, see what happens. I think that'd be a good thing to maybe look at here the next couple of weeks. I think especially as you look to that Penn State game, where that's a team that's playing really well on both sides of the ball right now. I don't think you want to kind of wade your way into that game. I think you want to come out really firing there.
Speaking of coming out firing, a great day for Marvin Harrison, who earlier in the week had talked about, hey, I do have an ankle injury and it doesn't matter. We're gonna go out there and play. He goes 8 catches, 163 yards and a touchdown. Where it was a really impressive day, where I think Marvin Harrison Jr. cemented himself today as the without a doubt best player in college football. Now, whether he ends up taking home the trophy that they give to the best player in college football at the end of the season is another discussion or not. But you see the athleticism, the size, but also the understanding of what they're trying to do. How impressive is 8 for 163 and a touchdown when you're not, and we don't know the percentage that Marvin Harrison Jr. is, but how impressive is that performance when he's willing to say, for a guy who doesn't say a whole lot, to say, I'm not playing at 100%.
Yeah, and they didn't even get him the ball much really until I think late in the second quarter. So a lot of this was, last 30 to 35 minutes of this game. He impresses me every week because he's not just a great athlete. He's not just big and fast. He's incredibly intelligent. You can tell he's got just a complete grasp of not only the offense, but knowing what the defense is doing, knowing I have to catch along the sideline, ball's a little high. A lot of guys are making that grab and either just stepping out of bounds or just trying to make sure they get their feet down. He makes this grab, and then he while simultaneously grabbing the ball, he knows in his mind, I've got to get my feet down and I've got to start working my way back toward the middle of the field because I got to make this guy miss. I got to make him move inside. Just the way he plays the game and processes things in real time is absolutely incredible. And he's got the feet of a slot receiver at 6'4". It's just crazy. It's crazy to watch him. I so enjoyed watching like Garrett Wilson. He does things that Garrett can do that really only Garrett can do as far as things we've seen at Ohio State or even sometimes in the NFL recently. But Marvin's actually able to do that at 6'4", whereas Garrett's doing it, at maybe 6 feet if we're going to be generous. So it's just the way he is able to move and think in real time at full speed is really it's incredibly unique. I haven't seen many like him.
Speaking of another individual player, as you take a look here at the targets from today, where Marvin Harrison Jr. gets 15 targets, and I think part of the there's a, in my opinion, a ridiculous discussion in the comment section about play calling is still a massive issue and Ryan Day doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground or whatever. You can have that discussion if you'd like. I think the play calling was really good in the second half. And when you see these numbers borne out of Marvin Harrison is targeted 15 times, that shows a supreme understanding of we're going to do our damnedest to get the football to our best player, and whatever we got to do to get it done is what we're going to do.
Yeah, there was a very, we can talk about maybe some things they found about Maryland, some things they adjusted to there in the second half. But I think the other big thing for why they were able to do what they did in the second half was right before half, maybe that second to last drive or last drive before half. It was very clear that Ryan Day just said, screw it. We're finding Marvin Harrison. Because he didn't do really anything in the first quarter. He finally got it going, got a couple catches there in the second quarter. And it just a switch was flipped there in Ryan Day's head that just said, whatever we do here, we have to find 18. And again, is that something that needs to happen earlier in the game? Can you afford to wait until the middle of the second quarter to remember you have Marvin against Penn State? You probably can't do that. So hopefully they're going to make that adjustment here and maybe do some of these things a little bit earlier in the game, do some things early offensively that can kind of prevent some of these high stress situations they've put themselves in here the last few games.
We're going to get to Tom Orr and Tony Gerdeman in just a moment. But one more question I want to ask you, Mark, before we get to that is, what's the ceiling for Sonny Styles at Ohio State?
If he's utilized properly, there is no ceiling. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse on this because it has been a thing with me the last couple of years with him. He's not a real safety. He's not Ed Reed. Okay. Right. He's actually more Von Miller than Ed Reed. He is a 6'4", 230 pound run and jump freak athlete who is probably the best hitter, best tackler on the team. So the closer he plays to the line of scrimmage, the more effective he's going to be. You're going to be playing to his strengths more when you do that. But I think you're also helping the team a lot more because there are things he can do in the box or on the edge in terms of sacks, forcing fumbles, turnovers, deflecting a ball, getting it intercepted. So many things he can do that will disrupt way when he's 5 yards or closer to the line of scrimmage than when you've got him running downfield with a slot receiver. So they've got, and I get it, like teams are going to try and scheme that up. They're going to try, when you put Sonny on the field, they're going to put guys in motion. They're going to figure ways out to try and do that with him. But you've got to be proactive on this. You cannot just throw him out there because he's one of your best 11. You have to be creative. You have to get him on the edge. The delayed blitz thing was a thing of beauty today. They were standing up Caden Curry on the outside in the second half, which is something maybe we can talk about on another podcast this week or something, because I think there was something there that we need to dive into, but we're not going to make Tom and Tony wait for it. But Sonny can do that. He's got incredible bend and flexibility. Like, he would be an absolute nightmare if you stand him up maybe 8 to 10 snaps a game on the outside. I think he'd be an absolute nightmare. So there is no, cliff notes. There's no ceiling for him if you turn him loose.
So that'll do it for the first hour here of the post-game huddle. We'll now send it to Tom Orr and Tony Gerdeman, who are in Columbus, ready to take the second hour of the post-game huddle. Guys?
Garrett, thank you, Mark, for sending that our way. A fun game overall.
Of all of the football games I have ever watched in my life, that was almost certainly one of them. I don't even know where to begin with that game. It was an emotional roller coaster on the level of Cats. I think a lot of Buckeye fans laughed. They cried. It was 3 out of 5.
Yeah. Well, first, want to join. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr and also Kevin Noon. Again, how's it going?
Yeah, that was quite an experience. It was a little bit of everything. A little bit of I tweeted halfway through the first half that if you were too young to remember the 2002 season, it was, hey, the offense can't do anything right now. But fortunately, there's pick 6 coming, and that's going to keep the game close. And I had, of course, lots of people who went, and then a bunch of people going, this is totally different. They don't have a Maurice Clarett on the team. And it's like, my brothers and sisters in Christ, do you remember what this team looked like when Maurice Clarett was out?
Right.
If only there was a parallel to Ohio State missing its top running back and looking terrible during the first half of the game on offense. Anyway.
You feel free to throw in your chats, your super chats. We'll get to all of that. You say this looked like 2002. I was thinking 2004. It was bad. The inability to pick up first downs, and as Ryan Day said after the game, the penalties in the 3rd and longs were obviously a situation. Kevin, super chat?
Yeah, I got it right here. Mike Farino says they covered. I don't know how, but they covered. What the heck was that game? I mean, there are so many different directions you could go with that. It was an Ohio State team out-talenting a Maryland team, and that's just kind of what tends to happen in these games. And it was an Ohio State team that was spent the first half just shooting itself in the foot on offense and just a bunch of random dumb things. And I don't want to make any really strong statements because I didn't get a chance to see what the heck happened on the fake punt question mark that wasn't actually a fake punt. And then there was a bunch of other stuff that I kind of am excited to talk to you about because I don't know what the heck happened because I was down on the field. But yeah,
Ryan Day said the same thing basically after the game. I don't know what the heck happened. I want to watch it.
Yeah. Super chat from Mike Smith. I know where to start. This run game is terrific, and the offensive line seems to not be able to find their butts with 2 hands at times.
Yeah, the run game, they rushed for 62 yards, 33 attempts. And some of that is sacks of Kyle McCord. Without him, you've got 80 yards, 84 yards rushing between Mayan and Chip Trainum on 26 carries, still not good. The lack of explosion is clear. I think the longest run of the day was one of the ones that Mind Williams at the end when he's running over people. Chip Trainum had an 8-yarder, and then I think his touchdown run was, I think I heard Laurie Schmidt say his second longest run of the day. At that point, the second longest rush for OSU on the day. And we knew they weren't going to be as successful outside because Travion Henderson was gone. So you figure they're going to be working inside, and we also know that's not where they've been successful much this year. So it was not going to be great, and it's only going to get less great when you have Penn State coming to town in 2 weeks, even with Travion Henderson coming back, because he's going to have to give you half of your yards on one carry in terms of hitting a home run in there if you have any kind of success.
Yeah, this was Kevin has his hand in the air, so we have to address some super chats. Let's get to the. Yeah,
here we go.
It's a which tab am I in issue rather than if you guys are being honest, this team could lose 3 games. 2002 is an outlier, and the run game is so bad the trenches have gotten worse every year. I'm not saying it's 2002 in that they're guaranteed to go 14-0. I'm saying it's 2002 in that the offense looked like a complete gong show for the first half, and the defense was keeping them in the game. And everyone is sort of interpreting this very literally. It's like, no, just the vibes.
Yeah,
we're just talking vibes here.
Yes, and that 2002 team could have also lost 3 games in any given week. There are times they could have lost 3 games in that 1 week.
Yeah, they could lose 3 games, but now you're at the point where this was somewhere on the list of losable games around number 4, 5, and they've already gotten through Notre Dame, which is one of the top 5. So now they would have to go 0 for 3 in Wisconsin or Penn State and Michigan, or they'd have to lose a really crazy one. And they could, but
there's still the bowl game, so this could be a 4-loss team.
Mike Farino says it was a very bad snap and the ball bounced perfectly to Simon, who took a moment and just started running. Okay, so someone said that the ball got stuck on the turf on the snap. I mean, that just
cleats, footballs, everything getting stuck in the turf.
There were times in the first half, when you were playing like NCAA 14 or whatever, and they were just you were 9-0, and the computer just sort of decided you're not going to win this game, and all sorts of random nonsense started happening. That it felt a little bit like one of those games at times in the first half. It was like, oh come on, that's not even a thing. How you're defying physics to make this happen.
When was the last time you saw a completion lose 18 yards?
A completion lose 18 yards. So that was ruled a pass and not a sack. Okay.
Yeah, it was just he tossed it to Chip Trainum. If Chip would have dropped it, it would have been an incomplete pass.
Just seeing that now, targeted 3 times, 1 play minus 18 yards. And then they take a delay of game on the play after that, and then they complete a 2nd and 33 because sure, why wouldn't you? As one does.
Well, and then
another day,
and then the sideline penalty.
Was that he the 15 yards, I assume, is that he was where he wasn't supposed to be and the official ran into him. Normally it's a sideline warning, but if they make contact,
Well, that was their second sideline warning, though.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So that's why the flag. I don't remember exactly when the first one came, but that was definitely the second one. And then, of course, Kate Stover gets the touchdown pass. Ryan Day calls the perfect play to make up for getting in the way of a referee.
Brian Laguerre says OSU has 1 first half touchdown versus Power 5. Okay.
Do you know how many wins they have against those teams?
Well, I mean, they've gotten 1 touchdown, but they've not played a team that has come in with a loss, and they are 5-0. So, I think this is also one of these times when we're going to have to reiterate this 6 times because people will be coming in and out, and they're going to say, how can you possibly say this team is going to win the national championship? It's like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying they have won so far. Mm-hmm. This was not a bad team. This was a messy game, but this was not a bad team they're playing. And, Maryland is going to win 8, maybe 9 games this season, maybe. And so that's a good win ultimately, but man, they got there in the dumbest way possible.
Maryland, I still think very well could argue that they're the 4th best team in the Big Ten at this point. And you beat them by 3 touchdowns. So there's no apologizing there, but as Ryan said, first goal is to win. Second goal is to have a good second half. They did that on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they gave up the drive, and we'll get to the super chat real quick, but they gave up the drive to start the half, and then they shut everything down. I do think Maryland made a mistake by running the ball as much as they did when it wasn't working in the second half.
Yeah, and I went and I was at the Mike Loxley interview, and we'll have some clips from Loxley a little later on, but Mike Farino super chat, was McCord throwing that to Chip so he would drop it, or was he truly trying to complete the pass? I assume if again, I'm not in a great spot. I'm on the far side of the line of scrimmage with a million bodies between me and him. I don't understand how you went backwards 18 yards without recognizing like at some point, like, hey, this is a bad idea. Like I'm not going to. Yeah, the traditional 18-step drop. Anytime you're going to do the quintuple move route, you got to give yourself some time.
It's just reversing the reversing of the field that CJ Stroud did a bunch last year and got away with it. Kyle has tried to do that, and the blitz was just not conducive to trying to get out of it that way.
And we need to talk about Kyle McCord, but first let's do the super chat from Mike Smith. The penalties are a recurring issue that seem to happen in big moments. It's like when something good happens, there's a flag at times. Also, is a rushing attack worth being stubborn on when you average 1.6 yards per carry? And, 1.6 yards per carry, really, the running backs were averaging 3 yards a carry, which is not good. That's not a good thing, but it's also not 1.6. You gotta sort of sack adjust it. So, yeah, it's not. I mean, it was a messy performance. It was a really messy performance, and I don't know exactly how much credit to Maryland on that versus just Ohio State just looking like they took it, they went to Cabo for the off week and then just kind of got back on like Wednesday, like, oh crap, is that game Saturday? Oh man, my homework's due on Saturday. I didn't realize.
Yeah, I think there's also maybe some perspective because it looked for a while like Maryland was running the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
They had some success, but they have pretty much the same numbers with their running backs as Ohio State did with their running backs. So there is a little bit of none of it was great.
Yeah.
But you see Maryland they were running the ball for some pretty good chunks for a period of time, but then it all stopped. And JT Tuimoloau, basically, I think he stopped most of it.
Yeah, he had a monster game. I mean, this is going to be remembered as the Josh Proctor game, but it could very easily be remembered as the JT Tuimoloau, one of the JT Tuimoloau games. As for the flags, I think this is some of the flags. I think you kind of have to chalk up to the emotion of the moment. I mean, some of the moments, some of the penalty flags are just, you got called for pass interference, you got called for intentional grounding. Like that stuff is not emotional stuff. But Day getting flagged for running out there, like or stepping into the area where he's not supposed to be, like that's probably just an emotional thing. And he was not happy with the officiating all day long. And let me just preface this with the fact that no one is saying the officiating is the reason that Maryland had a 10-0 lead in the game. There were calls that he was vociferously disagreeing with in the first half, and carrying on, let's say, conversations for the multiple plays with the poor official who was on his sideline. So I think there was an emotional piece of that. But just looking at this, Ohio State 10 plays, 81 yards. 10 penalties, 81 yards. That's a lot of penalties because Maryland did not play a particularly smart or savvy game. But 4 penalties, 50 yards. That's not going to necessarily. They got out of some of the penalties. They didn't take the brunt of some of those penalties the way that you could. It didn't catch up with them the way that it could.
So I was just looking at, and since Ryan Day has been head coach, Ohio State has had at least 10 penalties, has had 10 or more penalties in a game 6 times. 3 of those times was against Maryland. They've been against Maryland. And then even in 2018, they had like 13 penalties against Maryland. It's just something about the Terrapins that drive the Buckeyes a little batty. But, some of that was on Ryan Day as well because one of those penalties was his. So,
yeah.
Check yourself, Tom.
Yeah, I didn't get called for any penalties. I think we need to talk a little bit about Kyle McCord because, and again, I have been in a little bit of a bubble down on the field with little to no self-reception for large chunks of the day. So was there any speculation on Kyle McCord, looking at his stats there, 19 for 29, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, that ends up looking like this, like, oh, that's a perfectly respectable stat line. And there were long chunks of the day where it did not feel at all like it was going to end up with a very respectable stat line. He had both ankles wrapped. There was black wrap, and I don't think I've seen that in previous weeks. And there were enough passes that were left. He left the one to Julian Fleming down inside the 5. He left that one short. Like that was that was like Julian Fleming could have fair caught that one. There was the long one to Marv. He left short.
He also took forever to throw that one.
Yeah. It looked a little like a guy who maybe couldn't plant with his legs. And, I'm not like, this is not reporting. This is purely me trying to connect dots that may or may not be there. But, he didn't look like himself for stretches. And that might be the reason why. And, That's the kind of thing that we'll find out during interviews during spring 2024 when it sort of comes out. Oh yes, he was playing with yada yada yada, like we found out about Marvin Harrison's bad ankle from last year, sometime around this summer, I think.
Well, he started first quarter. He was 2 of 7 passing. Then the rest of the game, he was 17 for 22, 2 for 190 some yards in the second half. So it's one of those things where you are dealing with something perhaps, and then as you get used to it and get more accustomed to it, then it's not as much of an issue. But it was interesting. I credit the second half adjustments for the Ohio State offense. Although Cade Stover said, we didn't do anything different. We were just executing. And it sure seemed like things were different because there was nothing. The downfield stuff in the first half, I don't know if Cade or Cal McCord wasn't looking for it, or it seemed like there's a lot of just dropping 8, dropping 7 that Maryland was doing, keeping stuff in front of them. But then in the second half, they're dialing stuff up, and guys are running open free and just leaving it up to Kyle McCord to find them.
Yeah, and I was over at the Mike Loxley post-game interview, and he talked about the fact that a lot of their issues on defense, he said, and we'll probably play some of these clips in a little bit for you, but just basically when guys are running wide open like that, that's not, full credit to Ohio State, but when guys are running wide open like that, that's, wheel routes and double moves, and it's just guys not, he talks about eye discipline, and that's something we hear Ohio State talk about all the time. You have to, you can't guess, you can't think, you have to look at what you're supposed to be looking at and do your job and not try and do too much, and that's how you end up giving up big plays. Mike Smith says Kyle looked better when he felt like the play calling opened up. Some short throws, but there was a stark difference between the first half and the second half. I mean, the first half, that first drive just didn't look right.
Well, and they opened up with a quick throw to Marvin that was low, and that's been low several times this year, if I recall correctly. Like it looked like there was going to be some room there, but it just didn't get there. And they ran it later on in the game, and it didn't pick up much because Maryland was pretty prepared for it at that point. But there were times where it was clear that we all saw what Kyle McCord did against Notre Dame, but right now he does not look like the answer. And that was through most of the first half. And then he still finished with better numbers in the first half than Talia Tagovailoa had, while everybody's feeling like Tagovailoa is lighting the Buckeyes up. And McCord quietly has a good second quarter, and then third quarter, fourth quarter, really answered the critics as he did against Notre Dame. But until you no longer have those first quarters, then you're always going to have this expectation that you could have a bad first quarter. And if you have a bad first quarter against the wrong team, and they got the ball to start the game, and it just, went pretty flat. And then it for a while there, Maryland goes down and scores, and looks like they could have scored again. And they were shooting themselves in the foot. They were helping Ohio State quite a bit in that first half. And it felt like Ohio State was actually holding on at halftime.
Yeah, well, Ohio State felt very fortunate. When it went in at 10-10, Ohio State felt extremely fortunate to be going in tied in a game where they were favored by 3 touchdowns at home. And that's, that was a testament to exactly how remarkable and weird that first half was. Mike Freno says, just want to mention Styles. He was fine in coverage today, gave up a few catches, but he was mostly in position with them and required a good play for the receiver. Also beautiful blitz. It did seem like, there were multiple times when I ended up having pictures where, like, the receiver catches it and Sonny Styles has his arm between the guy's arms and he's catching it. And that's, there's a certain point where you have to sort of tip your hat. Like there was nothing that I saw today that I thought, he can't do this. That's not gonna work.
They were catching his hand as they were catching the football. It looked like he had coverage there, and they were going after him, and they pointed him out a couple times, and there was a third and long where they went after him. But they made some good catches. Jordan Hancock, I think, got his hand caught on one. The touchdown pass, the initial touchdown pass on that first drive with Davis Nigbinosin, like he wasn't beaten all that badly, and they were just making some nice throws in there. So, but then the pick six and things start to go downhill. The defense picks up, and the aggression is there. But I think this is kind of one of those Western Kentucky, Notre Dame. You look at the overall point total, and you're like, you give up 17 points to these guys when you gave them a 30-yard touchdown drive to start the game, and then they only have one other touchdown drive. That's pretty impressive. But that first half, they were moving the ball. They just weren't converting.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the drives for Ohio State. they had, we got a super chat before we get to the drives for Ohio State. Jimmy Kramer says, what is more concerning, an offensive line that does not seem to be developing, or what seems like a huge regression in linebacker play?
Well, yeah, good questions. More concerning, Ryan Day did say like he's going to be looking at the offensive line, and if there are issues there, I mean, if they have any better options, like I don't know that they do, and do you start changing things mid-season when now you're going to have to get those guys to gel? Like it is a concern when you're not running the ball as well, and there was some pass pressure, some pressure on the pass as well that kind of hurt them. But like, I don't know what the answer is in terms of personnel. Like, who are you changing out? Because if you might say Victor Cutler, has he now played enough, practiced enough, repped enough to be brought in? But at this point, Carson Hinsman has played more center than Victor Cutler played. Like he has more start. He has as many starts now, more starts now than Victor Cutler had at center at Louisiana Monroe 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I don't know. It feels like there was plenty of time to experiment and try something new, and now you're through camp, you're through the first 3 weeks of the season, and you can kind of screw around with stuff and figure it out. And now you're going to Purdue next week, and Ross-Ade Stadium is haunted, so whatever, we'll find out how that goes. But then you're 2 weeks away from Penn State. Like, this is not the time to be, there's no saying about changing horses in midstream,
Right.
and it's not. This is a good idea.
Now, the linebacker thing is concerning as well. Tommy Eichenberg had like 13 tackles, and it wasn't an outstanding performance. The missed tackle on the Talia Tagovailoa scramble, where he could have had him for a stop, and it didn't happen. And Steele Chambers and Cody Simon switching back and forth now. That it's not like a panic move because Cody Simon's a vet and they trust him, but it's concerning that Steele Chambers has not taken that next step and is playing to the point where they're looking for guys to get some of his snaps.
Yeah, and just Fort Wayne Buckeye says, and we're going to come back to the defense in a minute, but we're stacking up super chats right now. Fort Wayne Buckeye says, let's lighten it up a bit. Was Tony disappointed in the last field goal, so the score wouldn't end 34-17. P.S. Safeties played great today.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed indeed that my score prediction did not happen, although it did happen for a while. Much of the fourth quarter, in fact, it had happened. And then it went and ended up being a little bit closer to Kevin's score, which is even worse.
Yeah. It was, I think I had 35-21. Kevin had what,
38-17?
38-17. Yeah, I mean, so it was, that's pretty good. So,
but I won because Kevin overbid.
That's true. Price is Right rules. Mike Smith says the Ransom and Burke hits seem to pump the team up and wake them up. The Burke hit was nice to see, especially after some of the bad missed tackles. There was that sequence where I think that was the Josh Proctor hit on the kickoff, and then Ransom had a hit, and then Burke had a hit, and it was just there was some real hitting out there. And I mean, that it sounds stupid to say that because of course it's college football. There's always hitting out there, but even for college football, there was some hitting out there.
Yeah, and I was expecting a penalty after the Denzel Burke hit, just because it was such a big hit, but it was shoulder to shoulder. There's no reason to throw a penalty, which is even more why I expected it to happen.
You got to remember, Tony, in Burke's defense, he had barbecue back there and he wasn't invited. And so I don't make the rules.
Yeah, but that Josh Proctor hit on the kickoff return, I was expecting him to maybe come out after that because it looked like that was a head-on collision.
I have a still image of that where looks like he's got his head going horizontal. Like, that is not how they teach you to hit. And that was one where I wondered if there would be a penalty. I wondered if he was going to get checked to make sure he didn't get his bell rung.
And then I saw a teammate like slapping him on the helmet. I'm like, don't do that now. Just
probably let's let that settle down a little bit.
But overall, like this, Josh Proctor game, the safety's playing very, very well. Josh Proctor in coverage, he got a scramble drill where Tagovailoa went to him in the left corner of the end zone and went to his receiver, and Proctor was in the vicinity. Like he is now playing as well as we had been told about him many, many years ago. And the potential, the athleticism was all there, the ability to cover ground, and he still has the hard-hitting nature that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. And so now this is the complete Josh Proctor that we're seeing.
Yeah, and this would be a great time. We're gonna queue up the Josh Proctor interview right now. Got to talk to him after the game. Obviously, big story. Unsurprisingly, the pick six. You got to remember he has had. How many times have we thought, oh boy, that he had it and he dropped it, and then he jumps and grabs his helmet and he can't believe he didn't catch it. This time he caught it and he ran it all the way in. So let's hear Josh Proctor talking about the pick six and a few other things.
How does it feel to finally pull one in and take it back?
Yeah, it feels great, man. It honestly feels so real, but I'm just happy we came out with the dub.
What'd you see on that play?
We knew they like to go in that little bunch, a so-called bunch, and bring the running back out. And then he likes to throw the check down. So my eyes are just in the backfield, and I was just reading and reacting, anticipating.
Josh, when the ball was in the air, did you know?
I did. I felt like it was.
And then the return, that wasn't so easy.
Nah, but my only thing was just don't get caught.
Josh, a lot of people have talked about you maturing in different phases during your career. Would Josh Proctor from 2 or 3 years ago, or even last year, have made that play and watched the film enough to do that to make that play?
No, I wouldn't have. But I've seen a lot and I've watched film constantly, so now it's all about just anticipating more than reacting and going to play ball.
Is there kind of a little bit of like that proof in the pudding, like, okay, like I've kind of arrived. I know you're not satisfied, but like kind of arrived now that you made a play like that based on what you saw on film. The maturity coming full circle for you?
I just don't want to think too far ahead. Just want to live in the moment and take it day by day and just continue to do my job at the end of the day.
That's got to be the best game you played, right?
No, definitely. I feel like it. I was just out there having fun, honestly. I was just out there having fun. I wasn't thinking too much, just playing ball.
You also got the tackle on that kickoff. Looked like you got maybe the worst of it in a way. How hard did you feel that?
Oh, yeah, I definitely felt it. But in the moment, we needed some momentum. We needed someone to step up, and I just felt like it had to be done. So,
Josh, what was the reaction from your teammates on that pick six?
It was crazy. I couldn't even get to the bench. Couldn't see, but it was definitely exciting. It was exciting, man.
Josh, Ryan made the point that this team doesn't panic as much as he said maybe previous teams you're down 10-0 and they have the ball, you might panic.
Yeah.
What is it about this defense that's changed that makes you think that if you're down 10, you guys have the ball, you can still make a play and change this game?
I say like you guys said with me, we're just mature. We've all learned, we've all grown, we all been through the losses, we've been through the ups and downs, and it's all just coming to fruition, honestly, right now.
How does that manifest itself in a huddle before you guys go out on the field for that?
We just make sure everybody stays cool, calm, and collected. Don't want anybody to get too worked up. Just let them know that take it one play at a time. One play at a time, just do our job, and plays are going to come.
It would have been easy to kind of get a little flustered the way they would control the game early on.
Yeah.
What was going wrong in the first quarter and a half, I guess it was?
I think just communication and people not doing their jobs at the end of the day, and that's all that comes down.
So yeah, that was Josh Proctor. I mean, it was so interesting because we've talked to him for so many years, and he's never been, the super intense guy like Cade Stover or Tommy Eichenberg or someone like that. But his demeanor is so different. And obviously it's post game. He just had the best game of his career, and so yeah, he's gonna be happy. He's gonna be, but he just felt just more relaxed, and it was almost like he got here in 2018 and everyone was expecting big things immediately, and here we are in 2023 and it's like, oh, and now he's arrived.
Well, and Ryan Day talked about it earlier in the week that he's a more mature guy than he was years past, and I think you mature through the injuries, through the just being around. If you're in college long enough, Tom, you're eventually going to be a doctor or mature, and right now he's mature, and he's always smiling. He's like a happy-go-lucky guy, but he is more serious now, and that is what they needed. And they need him to be consistent, and you become consistent through maturity. And what?
No, I'm just looking at your screen and all the completely insane things that happened. There was a drone stoppage. We'll get there. Sorry to interrupt you.
I didn't want to come out of the break about Josh Proctor. Like, you've been to a game with a drone stoppage, but no, just fun to watch him play and be the guy out there. And now back at his once and future home of free safety, playing that very well. A player who's becoming more and more fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's one of the things this defense really needed is, how closely has good safety play been correlated with strength or weakness of Ohio State's defense? I mean, it feels like that's pretty much been 1-to-1 over the years, and they are getting really good safety play out of Lathan Ransom, out of Josh Proctor, and Sonny Styles, if you want to consider him a safety, Jordan Hancock, if you want to consider him a safety. I mean, it has been really good play in the back end, and the corners too. I mean, the secondary has been very good. And what was funny was Mike Loxley in his interview talked about the fact that the front seven is really the strength of the Ohio State defense, and it's like, oh boy, I mean, if the secondary is not the strength of the defense, and they're playing like this, that's pretty good.
Well, as JT Tuimoloau said after the game, coverage and rush, it's all together, and they showed that in this one, and the rush picked up. But the coverage, I was impressed at how aggressive Talia Tagovailoa was against Ohio State's corners. He didn't care who Denzel Burke was. He went after him, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. It didn't work, overly well, but to hold him to just under 200 yards passing, really good day by the secondary. There were tackles from Josh Proctor that you're like, would any free safety at Ohio State have made those tackles over the past 3 years? Where it's like the Jordan Fuller, nothing is getting past me type of thing. You're seeing that, and we don't want to invoke Jordan Fuller's name. We've decided not to do that in the past. We're not going to do it now, but it's much better what he's doing than, I don't want to say like a Bryson Shaw or, Marcus Hooker. Like, these are guys that they've had there over the past previous 3 years that wouldn't be making some of the plays that he's making, just simple tackles in the open field or something that would have gone for many more yards or being stopped. And I'm not saying it's bend but don't break, because we saw plenty of, aggression today, but solid effort overall by the safeties.
Well, and Maryland had 0 rushes of 20 yards and 0 passes of 30 yards. I mean,
they had the one pass of over 30.
Well,
it's like a 30.
The box score says the long is 26. So I'm very sorry, but
that's fine. That was one of my bold predictions. I'll take it.
I have to call moops. Just looking at the box score, it's so interesting to look at when Maryland was successful and when they weren't. It was start of the game, scored a touchdown, 10 plays 50 yards. On the next, they get stopped on 4th down, 12 plays 60 yards on the next drive, they kick a field goal. And then in the second quarter, Ohio State completely shuts them down. Interception, 5 plays 12 yards punt, 3 plays negative 16 yards punt. And then right before halftime, they go on this real quick 2-minute drill where clock management was not their friend. You want to not throw that short of the sticks when you don't have a timeout with 10 seconds left in the half. That is my pro tip to you.
That's one of those frustrating things where you are a veteran quarterback and you're relying, as a coach, you're relying on that guy to lead you down the field. And the one thing you can't do is get tackled in the open field. You got 12 seconds on the clock.
Yeah.
And he dumps it over the middle.
Yeah.
So a guy that is definitely going to get tackled.
Yeah. And then they come right out of the half, 9 plays, 75 yards. And, the first drive of the first half, they score a touchdown. The first drive of the second half, they score a touchdown. After that, 7 plays, 25 yards, an interception, 4 plays, 11 yards punt, 4 plays, minus 8 yards unknown. I don't know what that means. I don't know which one that
the result was unknown.
3 plays, negative 2 yards punt, 3 plays, 5 yards punt. I mean, and so you get through that first drive of the second half, and then they have
36 yards total offense after that, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you look at last year's Michigan team. How was last year's Michigan team so good on defense? How were they good? And it was, you could move the ball on them in the first half, and then you get to the second half, and then you really couldn't do it anymore. Now, Notre Dame moved the ball against this Ohio State team 2 weeks ago in the second half. So maybe, this is not a perfect correlation by any means, but that's what good teams do is, okay, they came, you come out, they adjust, they readjust at halftime, you adjust to their adjustments, and then if there's not a counterpunch, then you win.
Yeah, no, it was actually 31 yards of total offense over their final 5 drives, and they had 4 drives of 50 yards or more, and then boom, Ohio State just shut it off. And like I said earlier, I was surprised at how much Maryland was trying to run. Like when they ran it 4 straight times, and got stopped on the 4th and short. That was puzzling to me because they were having some success. But when a play caller goes away from something, like Maryland's passing game. I think that tells you that they're not being as successful with it as they like. So you got to try something else. With the Ohio State offense, that first half was horrific, but then they close it with the field goal, and then it's 5 straight scoring drives to start the second half. Which, that's going to win most games. And sure, 2 of them were field goals, but you're going to take that and just you're controlling the game, you're controlling the ball. The confidence that Kyle McCord is showing, talking to Kate Stover about Kyle McCord, and he's echoing what other people have said. But basically, we're all seeing what they've always known about Kyle. And I want to be like, but did you see the first half? Did you see that first quarter? And there's no concern, never a doubt. Sure, in terms of doubt or whatever, they weren't concerned. They weren't worried because of the slow start. And that's something that Ryan Day said, where as people are probably watching that live as well, that in the past, this is a more confident team, a more pressure controlled team, and there's no panic in them at this point. And in the past, there maybe was a little bit of panic, and whether that was against Michigan or whomever, this is a different demeanor of this team.
Yeah, and you want to be able to, you want to be tested. There's a fine line between the team that is never tested at all, and then you get into the the college football playoff, and then all of a sudden we haven't seen a team like this all year, and we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You also don't want to be the team that's tested every week, because that team, eventually the ball bounces not your way, and then you lose, and that's not great. This team is, they're probably a little more on that side of things than they are on the this has been too easy side. But they've gotten it done, and now you gotta figure it out at Purdue next week, and then you've got your real test, and we'll see what Penn State looks like. I think they're going to be more of an. I don't know. Is Penn State more of a test than Notre Dame? If you factor in the location, maybe.
I think Penn State's defense is better, so I'm not expecting Ohio State to score 37, like they did today. I don't expect them to run the ball much at all. Like I said, Trevion Henderson's going to have to bust one for them to put any significant numbers on the ground, in my opinion. Tom, can I put a super chat in to talk about the drone stoppage?
Sure. Super chat from Tony Gerdeman. Hey, what happened with the drone stoppage? It was funny. Down on the field, the ref said something, and no one around me could understand what he said. And then he just said, teams go to the sidelines. And we kind of went, what happened? I'm looking, is there someone down on the field? What's happening? And then he goes, okay, whatever, it's all clear. And it was like, what happened? I don't know.
Were you scared that there was a drone above you?
It was. I didn't hear the drone. I assume it was not like a Predator drone that was armed. I assume
you wouldn't even know it before it hit you. Though.
Yeah, that's true. I think it might be the greatest testament to what kind of game this was, that you had that, and we both, I think, forgot about it. Like, one of the weirder things that you could have in a game, and we just both, it got lost in all the other weird stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know where the drone came from. I don't know if this is an OSU media type of thing, football media thing, or if it was somebody from outside the stadium. I never saw it. We were all looking up, looking down, looking around. But they went to the sideline for about 3 seconds and then right back out onto the field. And they that was a new one for me. I did wonder if perhaps it was, remember when Braxton Miller brought a drone to hotel check-in day many, many years ago? Well, I guess it would have been 2015 perhaps, to preview or to document his move from quarterback to receiver. And they had a drone flying as he was checking in and getting luggage out of his car. I don't know if this is the capper to that story. I don't know how they're going to tie it all together.
Probably not, I'm going to guess, but
that was a new one. So chalk that one up. Check that box. Have you ever been to a drone stoppage? In fact, I have.
Yes. Bucket list. Very specific, for a very specific type of person. That is a bucket list item.
I'm not sure if people are asking about special teams.
No, not really. Everybody just wants to run Kyle McCord out of town.
Really?
Yeah. So, am I again, this is not me reporting. This is just me looking at the fact that his ankles are wrapped and the fact that he just wasn't driving the ball downfield the way he normally does. It just looked like he just wasn't quite physically right. And it happened both directions on the field. The ball to Marvin Harrison on the long one that kind of hung up, that was going north to south, and then the one that hung up to Julian Fleming was going south to north. So this wasn't like a wind thing. It just looked like he wasn't driving the ball down the field like he normally does.
No, and there were some, and the late throws were there as well, and that also ended up being underthrown. But just the late decisions he's deciding late. There were some plays in the first half where he really didn't have anybody to throw to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some play calls in there that didn't help him out. But he's 19 of 29 for 320 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. So
right.
If you want to run that guy out of town, watching that and watching the first quarter, and he's doing not great at all. And I'm not imagining Devin Brown doing any better. In fact, I'm imagining him doing quite worse than the 2 of 7 that Kyle McCord started out, because Kyle McCord is the better option for them right now. And he showed that.
Yeah,
he shows it.
Right. We saw it on the field. It was, I think if people are still kind of banging the drum for Devin Brown, I don't think that's based on anything other than someone I like to listen to on a podcast said one time that, and I think that it was pretty clear that coming out of camp, Kyle McCord was ahead. You saw on the field during the first couple weeks when they were sorting things out, looked exactly like it would look if Kyle McCord was ahead, and clearly ahead. And so it feels like that really is not that much of a, I feel like that's sort of a settled issue. Super chat from Jordan Kapler. Speaking of settled issues, I'm not saying the first half was all Kevin Noon's fault, but I'm also not saying that.
Well, we're going to have to look at the tape. Do you need to look at the tape or no?
I don't feel like I don't think I need to check the tape to know whether he graded as a champion or not.
Tell Jordan you can't move in with me now. Get the hell out.
I'm not privy to all of the conversations that go on around here.
I'm picturing like a Three's Company kind of situation. I don't know.
He's going to cook and clean.
Anyway, I had a football related. Oh, so the Marvin Harrison. Someone in the chat was mentioning the throw to Marvin Harrison in the fourth quarter. That was one of the funnier sequences imaginable, where he throws a pass, touchdown to Marvin Harrison, catches it, stands up, hits the silencer in the end zone right by the goalpost, and then there's a penalty. And it was like no one in the stadium realized it. And the ref is announcing it. The band is still playing. The players are still celebrating. And I'm looking at the ref and going, does anyone not see this? And I don't know, was it a motion penalty or something? I don't know what the penalty was.
Xavier Johnson.
Yeah.
And it was very ticky-tack.
Yeah. So they call it back, and immediately they throw to Marvin Harrison in basically the same spot in the end zone, a couple of yards closer to the goal line, catches it, goes to exactly the same spot, hits the silencer, and then holds up 2 fingers, like, did it twice. How about that? It was, I think that was a ball don't lie moment, I think.
Yeah, well, my tweet was Marv don't lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
But yeah, once you catch a second one, it's kind of like when you would play around the world and you'd have to prove it on the last one.
You have to validate it. Yeah.
Or 21 when you have to he did that. And 8 catches, 163 yards, 15 targets. I don't know. I forget who I was talking to. I think it was everybody. Maybe Pat Murphy saying, I realize they're targeting Marvin a lot, but it still feels like they could do it more.
Yeah, and here we're looking at the numbers from today. Marvin Harrison Jr., 8 catches, 163 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, during the second half, it felt like it was probably more than that. Emeka Ibuka, 3 catches for 40 yards, no scores. He left the game early. Looked like an ankle, I'm guessing, or knee. He was kind of holding his left leg off the ground. I don't know exactly how serious it is. I will say on the field after the game, I saw him standing around signing autographs for kids. So he was not, if that's like oh boy, this is a real serious thing and he had to be rushed out, kind of like he's not, that it was definitely not that.
Yeah, and Day said it doesn't look like it's going to be a long-term thing based on what he knows preliminarily, but they will obviously get more information. But yeah, he came out of the tent with his helmet, not unlike Marvin Harrison against Notre Dame, but never got back into it, I don't believe.
So yeah, that was they have been fortunate with, because there've been a couple times it's like, oh, that looks bad, and they've been, they have not lost Harrison at Notre Dame or Ibuka, it sounds like, for a long-term thing. But
Tom, let me tell you this. So it's 11 yards of target to Marvin Harrison, 22 yards of target to Julian Fleming. I'm just saying.
He had he was open on that one, and that was probably, that's a touchdown if it's thrown where it probably could have and should have been. But he's someone that I think we've talked about in recent weeks. If teams are going to focus on stopping Harrison and they're going to focus on stopping Mecca Ibuka, you've got to be able to get open and be the guy. He's got to be the guy. If you're going to have a guy and a half on both of the other receivers, well, then he's got to be able. It's got to be him. It's got to be Cade Stover. That's got to open stuff up in the run game, and some of that stuff is happening and some of it's not.
Yeah, Cade Stover with 2 catches for 66 yards, the 44-yard touchdown there, and Julian Fleming the 37-yarder. So, like, everybody else is opening up stuff for the other receivers. At some point, will they be able to throw to run? Like, when will they start impacting the running game? I don't know. That's still their jobs as well, and I don't know that anybody is doing their job in that regard particularly well at the moment.
Yeah, I'm really interested to watch this game again to see the running game issues, because there were times when it felt like, oh boy, Chip Trainum is about to bust a long one, and then it's like a 4-yard carry. It's like it didn't. The results on the field did not line up with what I was seeing from field level. So I'm interested to go back and watch this, because were there specific spots on the line that were having issues, or was it just kind of overall they just weren't opening things up?
No, I don't think I think it was an overall thing, but they were still doing some tosses to the boundary, and when they did run to the field, things seemed to be better. But again, I don't like seams. But I think he rushed for 25 yards on his first 5 carries. Chip did. So then it was 26 yards on his next 15. So not great there.
Yeah, 20
or 36 yards.
20 carries, and you average 3.1 yards per carry. That is the most carries I can remember seeing a guy have when you're at 3.1 yards per. That's a bizarre combination.
Well, and he was, and almost every carry did go for like 3. It's like between 2 and 4 yards, basically, is what he was getting.
He is 3 yards and a cloud of dust.
Very much. That's why you give him the ball 20 times, boom, you win. You beat a Big Ten foe like Maryland.
Boy, Tony, don't cheat. Don't look at the box score. What was Ohio State's conversion rate on third downs?
At one point, it was 1 of 9, and I think they finished getting like 3 of 4 or something.
Yeah, they got hot at the end and finished 3 of 12.
Yeah,
that's
not good.
That's not sustainable.
As Dave said in the post game, a lot of that was negative plays or penalties creating a 3rd and long, where they had much more manageable 3rd downs against Notre Dame. The penalties, when the offense is playing as poorly as it did in the first half, a 5-yard penalty was a killer.
Oh, yeah.
15-yard penalties, forget it. Just punt now.
Yeah.
As long as, you've got everything coordinated on your punt team and you're not lining up illegally.
Here's one from Mike Smith. They did that too, didn't they? Boy,
there's some special teams we could talk about if people weren't so angry about Kyle McCord.
Yeah. Well, here's a super chat from Mike Smith. He says the line couldn't get to the second level. It was pointed out in the broadcast about 25 times how the linebackers were just running free. Fryer pulled around and blocked his own teammate on one play. If that clears anything up for you, did that happen?
Well, I'm going to assume it did, and we'll watch it and we'll see. But I want to know, did he at least put his teammate on the ground? Was it at least a pancake? Do you get credit for that?
You'll see that happen every once in a while. I remember Florida had 2 guys blocking each other. I think that was in a loss to Georgia Southern. So, again, I didn't see this, so maybe.
There was also one where Matt Jones and Josh Fryer, I believe, were both pulling before the snap.
Yes.
That happened. Mm-hmm. Josh Fryer did give up a sack as well. Josh Simmons, he was about to get a false start, but I think there was a delay of game instead that stopped that. But again, I don't know that Josh Simmons was an issue in this one. there's just, as was pointed out, like there's not a lot of second level stuff. And when you look at what Travion Henderson did against Notre Dame, that wasn't a second level run. That was just getting past that first wave and there's nobody there. Like he wasn't making somebody else miss after getting past that missed the first tackler. So the offensive line is struggling at the point of attack. And because you're struggling at the point of attack, you can't get to the next level. And when, the tight ends try, they're not necessarily great at that either. And neither are the two back sets with one of the running backs trying to block. Like neither one of those guys are all that great in that regard right now either. So second level, there is no second level. The second level is hoping you get past the first level and then you've out leveraged somebody.
Yeah. Boy, in talking about the two back sets, there was a goal line situation, and I think they scored on this one. I think this was the chip touchdown run in the third quarter. The first Ohio State touchdown in the third quarter. They are in the goal lines. They're on the 4, I think, and they trot Marvin Harrison off the field and bring in Caden Curry, and it was like, boy, oh boy, that doesn't feel like that's the optimized way for Ohio State to attack a defense. If you were the opposing defensive coordinator and Marvin Harrison leaves the field and Caden Curry enters the field, are you happy or are you sad? Let's talk about emotions, Tony.
Well, and if I've got the correct order of things, I might have the method behind the madness.
Okay, I'm listening.
Remember the earlier, I think it may have been first quarter, Ohio State's down in the red zone and it's third and goal or whatever, and they bring Xavier Johnson out. And it's like, well, remember we've talked, whenever they bring him out, they go to him and they try to throw that screen that gets called for intentional grounding. Well, then later on, that Caden Curry play you're talking about, Xavier Johnson's also out there. So what if Maryland is also thinking what I usually think is, as long as Xavier Johnson's out there, there's a reason he's out there. And the reason he was out there this time, Tom, was to fool people. And that's why they did the toss to the field for Chip Trainum. I think if I've got all of that correct.
If you say so. I like the Ohio State false flag offense.
Yes, that's correct. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
All right. So,
and if you do, I won't believe you because it's my false flag.
Do we want to go through some questions here?
I just put one up.
Okay. John Alexander says the boys got the job done. This team will bend, but it won't break. That's a sign of a good football team and good coaching. These players played their hearts out in the second half. Ohio State 5-0.
Yep, 302 yards total offense for Maryland. You'll take that every single time. And as Ryan Day said after the game, 2 interceptions, 190 some yards, 50% completions. If you can get that out of these guys, out of Talia Tagovailoa, you're going to feel pretty good about your chances. And they ran away with it at the end.
Well, and this is an Ohio State team that in a lot of the advanced metrics, advanced statistical systems, is number 1, number 2. Like they rank higher with the computers than they do with the, a lot of the traditional polls. And I think that part of that might be that, you have an expectation for what Ohio State football and successful Ohio State football looks like. It looks like the quarterback is slinging it all over the field and you're throwing for 450 yards and you can pound the ball on the ground. And, the defense is going to give up. They're going to give up some points. They're going to give up 24 points, but that's okay because you're going to score 56 and that's fine. And then you comfortably win the game by 3 touchdowns and, whatever it is. And this year's Ohio State team, the sliders are all wonky. The offensive sliders are down. They can't run the ball consistently at all. The passing game is okay, but it's not incredible. Like there were, smart football people that I saw on Twitter today, national folks who are like scheme people, talking about the fact that, this is, Ohio State having an average quarterback. And, I think Cal McCord is probably better than average quarterback, but the offense doesn't look like what you're used to. But the defense has been substantially better than any recent vintage of Ohio State. And you don't have to score 56 points a game if you're giving up 10, 13, 7, 17, whatever the numbers have been this year, you can score 37 points and win comfortably if you're not, they're not giving up 28, 31, 35 points. You're giving up 17, and so then you win by 20 points.
Yep.
All right, got a couple super chats we got to get to. Omar Austin says, is this the worst offensive line in recent Ohio State history? I guess the question is, how recent is recent?
Every offensive line is a work in progress through October and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
The 2018 running game struggles, do we put that on just Dwayne Haskins not being part of that, of that running game?
I'm tired of doing that show. We did that show 25 years ago. I don't want to do that show again.
Was 4 tackles, the 4-tackle offensive line. And they've done that again in last year they did the 4-tackle offensive line.
The 4-tackle line was 2021, right? Yeah, that was 2021.
But
yes,
2018 they also were. I think they're similar, but this being the 4-guard offensive line, I think is it the worst O line? I'm not going to say it's not. It needs to get better to be as good as several, but I would have to go back and look and really see. Obviously, 2019, 2020, they made the playoffs and things are fine. Any offensive line, I think, with Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones on it you can't say was worse than this one because that would be a lie.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which year. I think it was 2018 was the year where it was like Malcolm Pridgeon and Demetrius Knox and those guys. And
Michael Jordan was a junior.
Yeah. That one was, they had significant issues that year. And
Isaiah Prince, the senior.
Yeah. And that was a year where that offense looked, it wasn't great. It wasn't well-rounded, but it looked more like what you sort of associate with Ohio State offense under Ryan Day because they were slinging the ball all over the field. And that was by necessity because they couldn't run the ball, and the defense was terrible. So you had to have Dwayne Haskins throw for 499 yards against Northwestern.
Well, and they had an more up-tempo offense as well. They had more plays, probably. I went back and looked at my spreadsheet, like 10 or 12 plays per game more back then than they do now. But I think this one is still not as good as that 2018 offensive line. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need to continue to get there and honestly get beyond that. Mm-hmm. And with some new guys in here, they're going to get better and they're going to get better. But I don't know that they're going to be good enough to run the ball and get the job done. We can also say the same thing about the running backs because Mayan Williams does not look like Mayan Williams of last year and the year before. Chip Draynham came to play linebacker. Everybody loves him,
right?
But he's a 4-yard per carry, 5-yard per carry guy throughout his career. So to expect him to be something more than that, I don't know that we should. And of course, 80% of Ohio State fans are ready to throw Travion Henderson, out of the county.
He's terrible. How come, why do they keep wasting carries with this guy? And then he's gone, and then suddenly they can't run the ball at all anymore. And it's like, oh, please, no, come back. It's just, if it doesn't work, whatever you're looking at that must be the problem. And it's like, I think this is one of these times when football is complicated, and there probably is not just one answer to this where everyone wants to go, that guy right there is a bum and he can't play football. And it's like, it's not that easy. And this is one of these weeks when I'm looking forward to talking to Ross Fulton and finding out what, when he's had a chance to look at stuff, what does he think the issue is? Because the issue is, it's never just clearly, this one guy is always missing his blocks, or this one guy just can't do fill in the blank. It's a more complex answer than that.
Yeah, but if you get Dallin Hayden out there, everything would be fixed. That's all it would take.
All right. DZM likes the Ohio State defense. I think this is probably the most popular Ohio State defense since 2019.
Here's an interesting thing as well, because we could point out the lack of rush. They had 2 sacks, so they could have done more. I think there was still quite a bit of pressure, and Talia Tagovailoa is very good at getting away from that pressure. Remember, Maryland had given up 3 sacks all season. They got them twice today. There were concerns. There were issues and production issues, or not production issues, but just issues overall with the linebackers. They were not great again today. We're talking about these issues where things weren't great, and yet it's still 17 points. 302 yards of total offense, 4 yards per play. Last year against Maryland, Ohio State gave up 5.9 yards per play and 100 more yards of total offense than they did today.
Yeah. And that was a weird, that was a weird game too, but yeah, I know everyone, if you say anything negative, then you're being a hater. And if you say anything positive, you're being a homer. So this is a team that continues to be a work in progress in a lot of different ways. Quick score check from the West Coast. Is UCLA a good fit for the Big Ten? Well, they're currently beating Washington State 12-10 in the third quarter. So you tell me.
Well, hey, I think Washington State plays some Big Ten football at times as well when it's raining and terrible out there.
The CT Foster 01 says, aside from Marvin, who else do you think will grade out as a champion today? I think JT Tuimoloau, Josh Proctor.
I was thinking of offense, and I couldn't think.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting. And sometimes Ryan Day will talk about that, and sometimes he chooses not to.
Well, when there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It would be interesting to know who does and who doesn't. I'm just sort of thinking through. A lot of that is going to be Emeka Ibuka might not because he got called for holding on a play, and
Day disagreed with that call, so he might strike that one from the record.
Day disagreed with a lot of calls today.
How many games do you think of these 5 games that Ohio State has now played and 5 offensive linemen playing those games, the 25 opportunities to grade out as champions? We know one, Josh Fryer in the opener. Would you be shocked or dismayed if I put the over under like 1.5?
I think
it has to be more than that.
It's going to be more than that. But the total number being
you can't keep
5.
That's not good enough.
Well, no, that's
and you're seeing
grading out as a champion is sort of the standard.
Yeah.
That is the standard within the program,
and that's
you're
80%.
Yeah, and you're we're guessing like 5, and that's 20% of the time you're grading out at 80%.
20% of the time it works. 80% of the time.
Yeah, it
works every time.
ZZM says, whenever you feel about complaining about the Ohio State offense, just turn on Iowa.
Let's not compare.
There are children watching, please.
Apples to walnuts.
I'm now morbidly curious, and you're going to check. Iowa 10, Purdue 7, third quarter.
Iowa scored a touchdown in the first 5 minutes of that game.
Who had the pick six?
No, it was actually, I think, a long run by a running back. So still as fluky.
Yeah. There were, there were a lot of, there was just, people complaining about the refs right now. It
sure looked like horse collar on the replay.
When was the horse collar penalty?
It wasn't, but
was on the south end.
it would have continued. Was that a drive that led to a field goal or not? Maybe, but it sure looked like a horse collar. But the refs watched that stuff pretty closely, and they're allowed to grab the nameplate.
Yeah,
but this looked more like the shoulder area.
Yeah, usually if you get inside the shoulder pads. Yeah.
That I thought that was
the second quarter. Okay,
that looked like a horse. There are times you're expecting. Well, you're almost always expecting penalties nowadays, but I was expecting one there. Like I said, I was expecting one on the Denzel Burke hit. The Davis and Igbinosun penalty on the interception return. The fact that they threw that flag and then had to other refs had to be like, dude, are you crazy?
What was the initial call? Was it a blindside?
Yeah.
The guy was the front of him. It was that's unless you have literally eyes in the back of your head, that is not your blind side.
And Igbinosun could have laid him out, but didn't. He just got in his way.
Yeah.
So that was because at that point they weren't going to score. If you take that touchdown off the board and then you're like, okay, you're at 1st and 10 from the 32.
Watching that interception return, I was like, oh, Chris Gamble against Penn State. It was just very much like, oh boy, they better get him in here, otherwise they're going to be kicking a field goal.
Was that Zach Mills?
Yes, that was Zach Mills, 2002. That was right when I tweeted the thing about 2002, and that was the inspiration. Philip Pulio says in the first half, it looked like the Ohio State Hawkeyes turned it around in the second, and that referee needs Chinese water torture.
I mean, that was Iowa football. That interception, pick six to take the lead, to get in there.
Complimentary football, Tony. That's what Ohio State does.
Yeah, but you don't hear people complimenting Iowa football, Tom.
That was just completely backwards from what you're used to seeing from Ohio State. I think that's why it was so off-putting. JJ says, can't play bad first halves all season. You're going to get dominated by better teams. And I mean, they just played a pretty darn good team 2 weeks ago and did not play a great first half.
I think you can be dominated for a first half, but because your defense is pretty good, that domination may lead to a 10-0 lead like it did today.
Right. Yeah, you're not so far, and this does not mean, past performance is no guarantee of future returns, but so far, even when they've had the bad half, you're giving up field goals. Yep. The touchdown drive in the first half was 30 yards, and that was off of a wonky
terrible
snap.
Decision by Ryan Day.
Punting has been a fascinating journey for Ohio State over the last 7 games or so. Giving up a 30-yard touchdown drive, I don't really put that on the defense. That's a general bloody-mindedness of the universe kind of situation. And then other than that, they gave up a field goal in the first half, and then they gave up the one drive to start the second half, and that was it. And if you give up 17 points, you should win the game. Virtually every week, you should win the game, because how many defenses is Ohio State going to face that are going to hold them to less than 17 points? Not many. No, and it's been a while since Ohio State has held an opponent to an average of 17 points over the years.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a pretty decent number, and it's not been something they've been close to recently. And so if that's the high water mark, 17 points, you're golden. Yeah.
Go to maybe some Loxley sound.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do Loxley 1. This is just kind of the start of Mike Loxley's press conference. We talked a little bit, some general stuff, and then answered a couple questions. I will say I started I'm going to raise my hand. Sorry, my bad. He came in kind of very suddenly, and no one was ready, so I did not get the very start of this. So before I hit record, he said all credit to Ohio State. They deserve to win, all that. So let's go to just let you hear a little bit from Maryland coach Mike Loxley.
Creating turnovers, which, as we talk about with our squad, our winning formula is being able to generate explosives, take care of the football on defense, limit the explosives, and get turnovers, and we didn't do either very well today. I like the way we started fast, had an opportunity there in the first half, but, as I told our team just now, for us to take that next step, we've got to be able to make the plays that are there to be made. We had a couple of situations in the first half. We didn't come away with touchdown down inside the 5. We didn't get a 4th and 1. And those are the types of plays where our best players got to show up, make plays, and we've got to do a better job as a coaching staff of putting them in those positions to make plays. We talked all week about getting a game into the fourth quarter and then seeing where we fit. We were able to do that, and I just didn't like the way we finished, which, again, we can get those things corrected. When you go back and look at it, I'm sure we'll see that there were some opportunities that we had that maybe affected us affecting us more than it was Ohio State. And it's my job to make sure we get those things corrected. So I guess with that, I'll open it up to any questions you guys have. I mean, obviously, when you turn it over, not good. You give up a pick 6 there. Now, when you watch the tape, the receiver's supposed to turn inside. He turns outside. That's a communication issue. There's the ball should have been thrown inside. We should have had a receiver inside. But, Leah's a veteran player. He's played a lot of football for us. We'll win and lose with him, and I'll take my chances with him because he's a competitor. I like to saw him play a little better today. We'll look at the tape, get him corrected, and get back home and at the Shell and got Illinois for homecoming. George, what's up?
You guys had good protection in the first half, but struggled
they were doing and what you guys were doing?
No, I mean, again, their front seven is the strength of their defense. They play heavy-handed, especially in the interior parts of their defensive structure. But as I said, and even I'll continue to say it, it's more about what we do a lot than what they do. There wasn't a scheme issue. Our inability to run the ball wasn't numerical because of the numbers they have or they schemed us. It was a matter of our players making plays up front. We were able to generate a couple of explosives, but not enough today. I mean, as I said, his growth is beyond just one game, and we're not.
Whoa. Sorry. Yep. Okay. So there we go.
Easy, Mike.
Yeah. Settle down. Settle down. We might get to the other one later. Settle down. Yeah. I mean, they didn't generate explosives, and that's one of the things that looking at Maryland coming into the game, I think they said their goal was 12 a game, 12 explosive plays a game, and they had 9 last week against Indiana, Indiana's not a terrible defense. Indiana's a terrible offense. They're not a terrible defense. And Ohio State just held them in check. And I think a lot of that credit, a lot of the credit goes to the safeties, which you're keeping stuff in front of you. The corners were very good again today. But the pass rush was, this is it just all season long. The pass rush has been very disruptive. They actually got some sacks today, but the pass rush just continues to be very disruptive. Lots of hands in his face, lots of times when he had to move, had to get out of the pocket, all of that stuff. And, you get a guy out of the pocket, all of a sudden, if he has to go one way or the other, that kind of cuts the field in half. Yeah. If you're rolling right, you're not throwing downfield diagonally to the left. And that limits what you can do in terms of explosives. And you also have to have time to be able to throw the ball downfield.
Jim Knowles earlier in the week talked about you got to blitz him properly so he doesn't escape from you. I thought they took some interesting angles, and not even with necessarily a blitz, but there's a pass rush from JT Tuimoloau. I think that finally got him, like that. Talia couldn't get away from just based on the angle and the direction that he was already going, and so I think they were smart with some of that stuff. In terms of the big plays, Maryland had 5 pass plays of 15 yards or more, and 2 of those were 15 yards exactly. 2 rushes of 10 yards or more, and one of those was 10 yards. The longest rush, 17 yards. Longest play of the day, 26 yards. I think if you tell Maryland that, like you go in saying, hey, Loxley, just so you know, your longest play of the day is only going to be 26 yards, he's going to be like, we're not winning that game.
You're going to say, we're not getting on the airplane. Mike Smith says, super chat, what was the deal with the intentional grounding call on the screen pass? He had a guy right there. Did the broadcast not show something you saw? I thought was it a lineman?
There was a lineman there, but there was also, I thought, a receiver. I thought it got batted down. And so I don't know if it hit the lineman, which is usually illegal touching. So no, and being in the front row, I'm not going to complain about being in the press box, but being in the front row, the TVs are like on top of us, and when it's daylight out, you can't see any of it. So I didn't get to see a replay. Sometimes they show the replay on the scoreboard. It's controversial. They're not necessarily going to, but that one, I still have no idea exactly why it was grounded, because usually with the screens, like there's a receiver in there, and Lord knows they were giving they gave Talia Tagovailoa some leeway with some of his throws.
Yeah. And just speaking of the joys of the front row and the sun in your face and all that kind of stuff, add this to the list of, boy, that was a weird game. The weather today, it was cloudy, and then it was sunny, and then it rained, and then it was sunny, and then it rained, and then it was sunny, and then it rained, and there was a little bit of, I don't know, it must have been hail and not sleet, because it's not cold enough to be sleet, so it must have been hail, just little hail, and then it was sunny again, and it's sunny now. I mean, blue skies outside. It was like, you can just make up your mind and like, whatever, I'm perfectly fine with whatever it is. But the forecast did not have rain in it for most of the week. And then all of a sudden it sort of popped up today.
Well, yeah, just sitting, because it was overcast for most of the morning, but then there would be like pockets of sunshine that would just like shine down and blind you in the press box. And it felt like this is like one of those cat boxes with like air holes, all throughout the box. And then you got some sunlight coming in randomly. And that's what that was like. And it was difficult. And then, getting down to the field, I came down with like 6 or 7 minutes to go. And then I went back upstairs, but I came up here with like 3 minutes to go because it was just, the rain was just too much. It was just heavy. They were heavy drops. Plus I had my backpack with my laptop. I thought, you know what, I better get upstairs and get safe for my laptop.
Yeah, you're a house cat. We understand. We get it. We have any other questions we need to get to?
Here's something from Mika.
Mika Hanna says Mayan looked like he was fired up. Wish he would have played more. He, I looked at the stat broadcast with entering the fourth quarter, and he had 1 carry for 1 yard.
Yep.
And it was like, it's so weird to me that he's healthy. They said he's healthy. He played. He's healthy. And Chip Trayanum was not doing incredible stuff by any means, but Chip Trayanum had 20 carries and Mayan had 1 entering the fourth quarter. And that just, that obviously to me says there is substantial separation between the two of them. But then when Mayan was in there, obviously it's the end of the game and you're kind of in garbage time, but he looked good running it there. So it's just weird.
Yeah, it's weird, but the delineation is clear. Like, there is separation there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's because right now Chip Trayanum is better straight ahead. And like I said, I still think Mayan has dropped off something. He's not the running back he was last year. And he made some powerful runs in this one, but I don't know that the quickness doesn't seem to be there. The make you miss, like he was the guy that would make that first guy miss and then go lay somebody out. Now it's just like, I'm just going to try to lay somebody out. And, the first guy that comes into the area. I don't know that the quickness is there right now. And just it seems to be starting out. He seems to be starting out slower than he did a year ago and the year before that. The explosion for me isn't there when I watch him.
Yeah. Interesting stat here in the chat from Kevin. This was Ryan Day's 50th win.
50-6.
50
Not
and
good
6.
enough.
Not good enough. Those 6 losses unacceptable.
Well, and the thing is, like, for the standard for any Ohio State coach, you take over.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly should you win your 50th game? You should win it within your first 60 games, probably, right? Whoever you are.
Yeah. Mike Loxley, 25 and 29. They started in the same year. That's an interesting note on our crawl there. And 50 and 6, it's just it's so strange because you look at the like all-time winningest by percentage, and it's like Newt Rockne and Ryan Day, and yet I think there's a very strong sense that and this is lesson 1: do not lose to Michigan if you're going to be the head coach of Ohio State. That's a lot of it. If 2 of those losses were to Wisconsin and not Michigan, I don't know that we're having the same conversation. Maybe we are, because that's just what the expectation is. But 50 and 6 it's remarkable that I saw people today saying this is the beginning of the end of Ryan Day as they're down 10-0 in the first half, and it's like I don't think you need to be the first one to you don't need to be the first the Woj to exclusive must credit me because I was the first one. I don't that's a little weird to me. We do let's we'll run through some pictures from the game. Sure, we'll run through that. 33-0 versus unranked teams, 33-2 in the Big Ten.
You look at the winning percentage. Day 8.893, so 89.3%.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer 90.1% at Ohio State.
Yeah. All right, so let's run through some of the pictures from the game. I thought about the fact after we did this last week, it's like, well, this doesn't really translate all that well to the audio listeners, but this is what you can find them 2 hours and 12 minutes into the video on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. There's Ryan Day in the tunnel. The smoke effects that they do, like you can every once in a while get it where you've got someone's just on the other side of the smoke, and you end up getting these really cool pictures. So that's just the pregame tunnel there. There's JT Tuimoloau.
Big game.
Big game. He had he played the game. This is a couple games now.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to the last couple minutes of that Notre Dame game and then the game today. There were a lot of times where it was like, boy, Ohio State needs someone to make a play, and JT Tuimoloau is the guy who's making the play.
Well, even I think Jim Knowles said this week, he's a guy you can wait for to do that because you could trust him that he'll get it done.
Yeah. It just feels like there's, you're not gonna make a play every single time, but man, when they need one, it feels like he's been the guy there. What else we got? Josh Proctor, yeah, and there's Davis Nigbinosin. Yeah, and I mean, you can see that obviously this is the Josh Proctor pick six, but we talked about this earlier, the blindside block that was not a blindside block. I mean, you can see where Davis Nigbinosin is. You can see the guy who he blocked. It is the front of him facing squarely at Davis Nigbinosin. That is the polar opposite of a blindside block.
The pleading that happened as soon as Igbinosin saw the penalty come, he was just like couldn't express classily enough. Like he didn't want to get a penalty for like arguing, get a unsportsmanlike for arguing a penalty that shouldn't have been called.
Yeah,
he was pleading.
Yep. There we go. And then there's Josh Proctor in the end zone. There's a great one in the middle, a tremendous one in the middle, and slightly out of focus. So annoying. Hate it. But yes, that's there's Josh Proctor.
Was that your fault or the camera's fault?
I think we all know the answer to that, Tony.
Lousy camera. That's why you left it in South Bend.
This is the second of the back-to-back Marvin Harrison touchdowns. This is the one that counted. As I said earlier, incredibly funny to do. Basically the same spot, same touchdown celebration, just tremendous after the previous one was called back on a motion penalty.
Do you think Ryan Day said before that play, watch this?
All right, so there we go. So we're through the photos.
Just looking at
there we go. Another JT Tuimoloau. There's Marvin. There's Marvin holding up two fingers for. Hey, look! I scored twice.
That's a peace sign, Tom.
Yeah, and he was like that. You can see the smile on his face. Like I think he found that very amusing that he did that. Like,
of course. Like, how could you not? You get something taken away. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, take this one away.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? Then I'll do it again. You want to take it away, please?
Yeah.
I should have motioned illegally just so I could do it a third time.
I did think about the fact that he lost the touchdown on the call in Indiana, the out of bounds, like the illegal touching call.
Oh yeah.
That Big Ten later said, "Oops, shouldn't have been a penalty." So if he had lost another one on a penalty, that would have been. And you said you said the penalty was a little ticky tack on the motion.
It was bizarre because Xavier starts to turn. He's in motion, then he kind of maybe turns and faces the line of scrimmage. And as that is happening, somebody else kicked up a heel. So I don't know exactly what they're calling, but if they're calling because he's turning towards the line of scrimmage, Emeka Egbuka does that every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So and they should call it, but
Marvin mentioned during his breakout interview that it was not the first touchdown he's had called back this season.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep. Oh, and sorry, our producer. I said, okay, you can come out of the picture, and he said, no, the shot of the day. And I forgot about this one. Yeah, that's Marvin Harrison going up on the sideline. That was the ball. That was, I think, right before halftime. I think.
Is that the one after the deep pass?
It was. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then there was that one.
Yeah, there was a deep pass, and then this one where the ball is so. That is not a great throw, but. This is why we say, hey, you should probably just be throwing the ball to him more, because even if he's covered, even if the ball's like, oh, that's not an ideal place to throw it, he catches it, and then he comes down, and after making this incredible catch, then he comes down, and then he makes a guy miss, and then he picks up another 5-10 yards.
No, did that drive end in a touchdown though?
I believe that ended in a field goal.
That's why you throw to Marv more.
Yeah.
It's a get out of jail free card. Or what did Tim May had a good line, and I don't know that I wrote it down anywhere, but the Cade Stover touchdown he said that was the get the coach out of jail free card.
Mm-hmm. Well, and boy, that was, I don't know how he got that wide open. It was just, thanks, coach. I got that. On
Somebody
the field.
Wasn't where they were supposed to be, Tom. It's quite simple.
Yeah, through a camera lens, I got that one on the field. Thanks. Yeah, I just didn't know if it was someone fell down or someone. Yeah. Okay. Well, what an exciting mystery. We'll probably talk about it with Ross Fulton later in the week. Who knows?
Do we have anything else? You got any questions? We're good there, Tom. Did you want to get to anything else?
I think we're good. We're
for the morning show.
Yeah,
there you go.
We're good. Yeah, don't worry. We got Buckeyes tomorrow morning coming up a little later on.
Not live.
Not live.
Plausibly live. No?
Unless we want to. I don't know. That's up to Kevin.
Do you just want to just switch seats? Kevin can sit here, and then you guys.
Yeah, that's fine. No, We'll we can wrap it up.
Okay,
But yeah,
then.
I mean 37-17, essentially exactly the score that we all predicted, and they got there in the most bizarre and unpredictable way possible.
There's no way at midway through the second quarter am I thinking Ohio State is going to cover, because at that point I'm thinking, can they have a four-way tie for in the Big Ten with can everybody lose? I don't know how But anyway, we got a super chat.
Mike Smith says subscribe to Buckeye Huddle for great content.
There you go. Absolutely do that. Subscribe to Buckeye Huddle for great content. Thank you for throwing that one in there as well. And thank you all for tuning in through this entire thing. We always do appreciate that when you show up, and you know to show up and get all of this from the coaches to us and everybody in between. So I want to thank you all for tuning in as always. And of course, please become a member at BuckeyeHuddle.com. It is a fantastic way to support what we do here. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys later.